OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.
Yeah, you're very welcome along. It's the Off the Ball Breakfast Show. We're here with you all the way through until 10 o'clock this morning. If you want to get in touch, 0879 180 180, that's the WhatsApp number. You can always leave a comment on the YouTube stream. You can follow the show at Off the Ball AM on Twitter. We are still on Twitter. Twitter is falling in on itself. It's like this little black hole of... So I still have some hope that maybe might be rescued again. Another side. Colm's here. Colm, good morning to you.
Hi there, hello.
Shane, good morning to you.
Good morning, how are things?
Finally getting in the mood, Shane.
Yeah, finally getting in the mood.
Yeah.
Has to be done.
Kathleen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Denise O'Sullivan is starting. That's the news this morning we all wanted to wake up to.
Yeah, she is fit and she is starting. It was Tony from RT that asked the question, and I don't even think he got halfway through it before Vera was like, she's fit, she's starting, and I'm glad. And Katie interrupted her and said, I'm glad too. So I think there was a bit of a sigh of relief around the room whenever she said that. She's come through all the training sessions fine. The team have another training session now this evening, which she's expected to compete in fully. So that will be her first proper full training session since the incident on Friday. But yeah, it's all looking good from this side of the world.
All is well that ends well. So this was the first press conference that there was with the whole world's media that we were chatting about yesterday, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So today was the first one. It was a little bit of a damn squid, I won't lie. It was less than 12 minutes long, and there wasn't much opportunity to ask too many questions. World media just seemed more interested in how we were going to stop Sam Kerr. I don't know if they were hoping to get some sort of insight from us for later on in the tournament. But yeah, I expected there to be a few more awkward questions thrown Vera Pauw's way, but there wasn't actually any at all. It was all about the match and how much it means to be kind of setting off in such a big stadium. I was fortunate enough to have a bit of a look around the stadium when I came in, and it's big. You know, you hear 80,000 in your head and you're like, oh yeah, that's a big stadium, and then you walk out into it and you're like, whoa. So I'm gonna be interested to see how some of the Irish players fare with that tomorrow. Yeah,
especially the bowls, because there's no standing. I presume there's no standing, is there?
No, it's all seated.
There was a little mini incident at the start where our Australian host got our captain's name wrong.
Yeah, a little bit of an awkward one. The FIFA rep was introducing everyone, so introduced Vera Pauw, and then she was like, and the Ireland captain, Katie McCabe, and everyone was like, ooh. And Katie straight away was like, it's actually McCabe, and even that got a bit of an ooh, because when Katie McCabe tells you how to pronounce her name properly, you pronounce her name properly. So yeah, not a great start from them, but it was all smoothed over. Was
the FIFA official Australian, or was it like one of their Swiss boffins?
I think it was an Australian.
Hey, there you go. That's all we need.
So. Filligan came out with a great one this morning. She's going to have a chip on her shoulder being called McCain, which is pretty Filligan.
I've just got that now. I heard it. I heard it in real time. I was like, yeah, that's good. Yeah, she will have a chip on her shoulder. Yeah, now. yeah. Now, sorry. It's very early sometimes in the morning when we're having these conversations. Fair play to Phil.
Yeah.
Kathleen, was it 12 minutes because the questions ran dry, or because it was cut short 12 minutes?
It was just cut short in 12 minutes by the FIFA rep. I know the team had like quite a tight turnaround, so they had to get over to another one of the training grounds. They're not training within the stadium here today, so they had to get to that training session. So I assume that's why it was so short, because there was plenty more hands up to ask questions. Like I'd say less than half of the people who actually wanted to ask a question managed to. And it was unfortunate because, I don't know, match day -1, first press conference of the tournament, you kind of expected a bit more, but yeah, it was very short, very tight, not a massive amount of news out of it. Katie had a nice line towards the end where she was asked what is she going to do or say to the players tomorrow to kind of, you know, get them ready for the game, and she was like, I'm going to keep that in-house, but I just would like everyone to know that what you see on the pitch is going to be us giving our all. So yeah, exciting. She also put a shout out to anyone who hasn't already got their viewing party sorted. I mean, I'd love to hear what you guys have planned for tomorrow. I know you'll still be in work, but I'm expecting a big office showing for it. She encouraged everyone who was not already signed up to a viewing party to get on it. So definitely do that. And anyone who is organising one, please do tag me in photos on Twitter, because I would love to see it. I kind of miss the fact that I'm not seeing all the hype back home.
Yeah, it's going to be I'm going to be in Joe Quaid's house in Limerick.
All right.
So hopefully he has the tally on. I'm sure he will. I think everyone you have to plan where you're going to be, because it's a random time. 11 a.m. So it's 11 a.m. kickoff our time, Kathleen, isn't it?
Yeah,
on the nose.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's 8 o'clock here, 11 for you. So
presumably there are viewing parties around
all over,
workplaces. Yeah.
Those messages that you're getting.
There's loads of pubs and stuff in Dublin as well that are opening early. I know there's a couple around where our office is as well. So,
well, we'll be
in case anyone wants a little
shout out, yeah, or if anyone, well, yeah, literal or metaphorical. Those messages that you were talking about getting tagged in, you sent one I think from Blessington yesterday, and it was amazing.
Yeah, there's some really, really great ones being sent on to me. So a lot from around where Abby Larkin is from. That's kind of been the main one that I've seen around Ringsend. Seems to have gone absolutely crazy for it. Really, really nice video from Blessington, from the local football team. All the little girls kind of recorded a special message for Louise Quinn and the rest of the team, wishing them luck. I'm getting sent in loads of pictures as well of just people generally in their houses who have decorated the house up. I've had messages from people who are Irish but living in Australia, who are messaging into the Koi Gig account saying that they see this as such an opportunity to make sure that their kids have that little bit of Irish heritage, especially being so far away from home, and for the younger ones who maybe don't really understand yet quite, what being Irish is or what it means to go home, and sending me lots of videos of how decked out their houses are. So it's important at home, but this is also something that's gone pretty global as well, which is quite cool. It's nice to see. I've been sent a few pictures of dogs dressed up as well. So literally everyone is getting involved. If you're not getting involved, what are you doing? You're just a sad person.
All we need now is just a little bandwagon push, an early goal and some kind of result, and all of a sudden we'll all be like, yeah, time to go mental.
Yeah. Wouldn't be like the Irish to jump on a bandwagon at any point.
No.
I'm all in favour of bandwagons. Life is very busy for people, and the bandwagon comes along, you got to get behind it.
I'm not dissing it down. I mean, sure, look at the Irish hockey team when they did the run in the World Cup. I think hockey was suddenly everyone's favourite sport in the country for about 6 weeks or however long the tournament went on for. So yeah, no, definitely jump on it, watch it. It's at a nice time. You can just have it chilling on in the background if you want, get excited, have some fun. Lots of Irish around Sydney who have travelled here, whether either from within Australia or from Ireland itself. So going to be a good atmosphere. It's not going to be an Australian takeover. I think it's going to be pretty 50-50.
You brought us behind the curtain in the stadium. I believe we have a little footage here. 6 seconds. Oh, wow. It is huge. Massive.
It is big. Yeah, and it looks really well, I have to say. The pitch looks really nice. The colours for the tournament are really nice, and they've done a really good job of decorating it. They had the big scoreboard up, and they were testing it out, and the goals were going up and down, and Ireland were always going slightly one ahead of Australia, and I was like, I like this. Let's keep that going tomorrow evening. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's... Sorry?
Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just saying it's the stadium itself is a bit of a drive outside of the main Sydney area, but you can get a train out here, so I expect fully all the trains tomorrow to just be wedged with Irish supporters.
Yeah. Do we have any idea when the starting 11 will be announced, or when you'll get a feel for that yourself?
I feel like I could tell you right now what the starting is going to be. I don't think it's going to change, like I was saying yesterday from the France team. I imagine it'll be a couple of hours before kickoff, just based on previous tournaments. Generally, it's between 45 minutes to an hour and 15 before kickoff.
So could you get a sense, even, I know it's only 12 minutes, but seeing the players, is there kind of a difference in body language now and tension racketing up, or is there more excitement levels?
Not really, because it was only Katie that was here today. I assume the rest of the players probably just went straight to the training ground, but she was just cool as a cucumber. Very classic Katie McCabe. Didn't seem to take a fizz out of her whatsoever. Vera, much the same. I kind of feel like Vera has been running out of steam a little bit the closer and closer we get to the tournament. There's been a lot of stuff happening and a lot of things that she's been contending with, and definitely seems a little gentler is the wrong word, but there's a spark, I think, that seems like has been coming from maybe a bit of fatigue and tiredness on her side, and I definitely felt that a little bit more again today. Not as bad as it was last week when we were in Brisbane, but yeah, I feel like maybe she is taking on a lot of the weight of things.
What has the team's link-ups with their family been like? Because I saw a lot of the family members catching up with players at the airport in Sydney, I presume it was. And even Amber Barrett's brother, by the way. I think it's Amber Barrett's brother. She looks more like Amber Barrett than,
image.
like, oh my God. Absolutely identical. Was that the first opportunity in a while that got to see their family, or how does that work?
It kind of depended. So a lot of the families just came straight into Sydney, so they would have just been here the last couple of days. But then other family members were based in Brisbane or went over to Brisbane. So like I know Katie was able to spend some time with her family over the weekend. Louise Quinn was the same because her sister is based in Melbourne, I think, and she came straight to Brisbane and then came over to Sydney. So it just depended on a lot of the players. But I know, like, say for Amber Barrett, like when she saw her dad and stuff, that was one of the first times that she got to see him since they left Ireland. So emotional scenes for them. And again, that's the thing, like there's just so much to this. You kind of, every time you get over one emotional thing of like, you know, the squad is picked and then you have all the big going aways and then you land here and you're getting over the jet lag, you kind of keep thinking, okay, there's not going to be something else, and then there is something else. So how the team handle that emotional toil of the constant up and downs is going to be very interesting, because I mean, we keep saying it here in the press pack, like everyone feels like we've already done a tournament and a ball hasn't even been kicked yet. So the next week is going to be really interesting to see, can the team sustain their momentum.
You have to assume that's the same for everybody. And while we would have had the emotion of the going away, is that getting the 23 Matildas from across Australia, it's a really nice moment, but I'm sure for Australia it's incredibly emotional. And Cathy Freeman coming in, you know, if it works, it's amazing. But there is also this, well, I delivered a gold medal when the entire world thought that maybe I was going to crap out and not be able to do it, and then I absolutely ramped home and killed the whole place, and the stadium erupted and I united the country in a way that nobody else has ever done. No pressure, kids. Two ways of looking at the Cathy Freeman thing, definitely. Obviously, you would definitely be leading into the amazing achievement and getting as much of that to rub off as you possibly can. There was a Players Tribune article from Katie McCabe where she talked about that moment in her life where she gets named captain, I think in the aftermath of Liberty Hall, and also is working in Nando's full time, and then a month later is a full time professional footballer.
I mean, I say it's an incredible story, but it's also one that you've just become so accustomed to hearing as well in the women's game. I think what makes Katie stand out is how quickly she made that rocket from being a decent player to like a very, very good player and absolutely crucial to Ireland's opportunity. Like she talks in that piece as well about the influence of, say, people like Emma Byrne and how important she was for her development. I think I forget sometimes how young Katie McCabe still is. You know, like we're the same age, and in my head she's about 10 years older, has been here forever, is a font of wisdom and knowledge, but it actually has been such a short amount of time since she was working in that Nando's. Wasn't, you know, the Katie McCabe that is feared the world over. So it's an incredible trajectory and it's an incredible story, and I think it'll only be probably when she retires that we will properly appreciate how much she took on her shoulders from such a young age, especially with the Ireland captaincy. You know, there was an expectation when she became captain that it was going to be someone like Louise Quinn or Niamh Fahey. It wasn't going to be her. And then that chance was taken on her, and you have to say it has fully worked out so far. It's
a remarkable occurrence, Kathleen, because it wasn't like she had experience of being captain at underage level either. And like, she wasn't having a good time at Arsenal. She was about to go on loan to Glasgow City, and then to get this huge, you could call it a burden or an opportunity, and she decided to go with the latter, because she said herself in the article that I didn't know what I was doing, but I had no time to think about that. I just had to act like a captain. Amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And like, to be fair to her as well, she would pay a lot of like credit to those players that I mentioned before in terms of helping her adjust to that position. And I think we've talked about it before on Koigig. It must have been very strange for those players, you know, Louise and Niamh, who were such stalwarts in the team, have been there for so long, were older, more experienced, to have this kind of young whippersnapper come in and suddenly take the captaincy, and to have the grace to turn around and say, well, okay, this is obviously, someone thinks this is for the good of the team, so we're going to help her and we're going to support her and we're not going to hold a grudge in this situation. And I think that speaks to how close this team is and how much it is very a case of we lift each other up, we don't tear each other down, or we don't let egos get in the way. And I really hope they can keep that rolling and keep that going, because obviously things are changing a lot very fast in terms of players getting, you know, bigger contracts in the WSL, more media access, more attention on the team than ever before. So I do hope that is something that stays with the team.
You'd hope it will, and that's one of those opportunities that they have, not to follow the route of the way the men's game has gone and everybody's so far and distant and unapproachable and not really part of the community anymore. What happens over the next 24 hours?
So the team are training tonight, and then they have the opportunity to just chill for the evening. I am off back into Sydney on the hunt for some Irish people to bring you guys a little bit of the atmosphere. I've been given a few tips as to where the best places to find people are. And then tomorrow, the team basically has the day to themselves until they have to come over to the stadium a couple of hours before. So there's a couple of videos up on Off the Ball socials chatting to a few players in terms of what they'll be doing. But it'll just be taking it easy. Couple of walks, couple of going for coffee, reading a book. Courtney Brosnan said that's what she's going to be doing. She's going to be reading a book and chilling, just having a little bit of time to herself. A couple of players are going to go listen to some music. So it's going to be chill until all hell breaks loose in Sydney tomorrow evening.
How to beat Australia in the first game of World Cup.
Yeah, that's a good book. Good book.
Exactly, yeah.
Come here to me now. Sydney versus Brisbane. Discuss.
I did, when I was in Brisbane, I was like, oh, this school's interesting. And then I came to Sydney and I was like, oh, okay, this is so much more electric and interesting as a city. Brisbane is very chill.
Isn't it?
Like, people get up there at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and then by like 7 o'clock in the evening, people just don't exist. It's like, it's very much a get up, do yoga, go for coffee, exercise, go to work. Very wholesome sort of city vibe, whereas Sydney definitely feels like it has a bit more of a buzz to it. And also, to be fair, the thing that probably shifted my opinion on the two was that I came to Sydney and it automatically felt like there was a World Cup being hosted here. You know, you couldn't walk for signs that it was happening, or even just running into people with like different jerseys on, whereas in Brisbane, you literally, I don't think I met one person that I talked to that actually knew the World Cup was happening, or else they were kind of vaguely like, oh yeah, I've heard something about that. There's a game up the stadium tonight. And I was like, well, no, that game's actually on in Melbourne tonight, but you're close. So I think I probably preferred Sydney so far, but I've heard from some of the Aussie media who are here today, who were in Brisbane after I'd left, that things were starting to pick up a little bit there. So maybe once the tournament actually starts, there'll be a bit more of a buzz. I'm hoping to go to one of the games at the weekend, so I'll let you know then if the vibe has settled a bit more. We've
been waiting 9 months. You could say we've been waiting 21 years. The World Cup is finally here. Kathleen, we'll let you go. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will chat to you tomorrow.
Catch you tomorrow, guys.
See ya. Kathleen McNamee live from Australia. It is starting to feel like a World Cup is here.
Yeah. No, that's good now. This is good stuff. Like,
you're a hipster, so you prefer Brisbane, is that?
No, I never said that. No. I lived in Sydney.
Sydney's the
I have family in both Sydney and Brisbane.
Okay.
So I must text the cousins there and be like, get yourself down there to Sydney tonight, getting off the ball. He's a big fan. He's actually Australian.
All right.
Yeah, born in Australia, like, and is a big fan of Off the Ball. So there you go.
Do we have some Amber Barrett?
Yeah, we have 32 seconds of Kathleen's chat with her. Do we? Maybe not.
And how did you feel watching the Australians? Like, did it give you confidence going into our game this week? Did it make you a little bit worried? What were the main thoughts?
No, look, they're a world-class team, you know, and I think everybody is really, really behind them here. I think they have a lot, you know, probably a wee bit of pressure on their shoulders too. You know, their home nation, one of the teams to be tipped to win the competition. So, like, you know, as I've said many times before, we don't fear anybody, and we're just going into every game with the confidence behind us that we know we're good at, and that's going to be no change on Thursday.
The picture that we had over there was obviously playing a bit of Gaelic. I do wonder, is she like our fourth choice goalkeeper if someone goes down? Is that what happens? Could we have had an extra player in the squad if we decided that we have multi-talented?
There's something in Donegal, isn't it? Seamus Cummins does it all the time. You know, he scoops the ball up into his hand, playing throw-ins.
Oh yeah.
Something in Cork too. Megan Conley stood on goal.
Oh yeah,
famously. for Corinthians against Wilton United. She could do it again.
Speaking of multi-talented, there's a Vicki Wall story this morning where it looks like she's not going to go back to Australia to play Aussie rules. Just got a quick recap here. Meath in the second tier of Gaelic football, inspired by Vicki Wall, win the second tier and then go on and win the All-Ireland Senior the next year. She's like, I don't know, has it been done before? It might have been done, but I don't know. And then she goes off to Australia and plays Aussie rules and is like pretty good at it. And now the Ireland Rugby Sevens team, who are qualified for the Olympics, have decided that they're going to fast track her to get her involved in the squad. Is there a better Irish sportswoman at the moment? I mean, Rashida obviously finished second in her debut last night, just turned professional, has signed a big deal with Nike. We're going to talk about that with Cathal Dennehy a little bit later on. But this is pretty impressive stuff by Vicki Wall. Kind of unprecedented.
The IRFU have been very, very smart here, haven't they? She got home for Christmas. They brought her into the high performance unit in Abbottstown, and we're like, here's our unbelievable facilities. Have a look. Kick the ball or throw the ball around there, see how you feel, run a few laps. And clearly she enjoyed it, because the contract at North Melbourne is going to be finished. And it's going to be a strange one, obviously, for the girls in the Irish Sevens team who helped get the team to the Olympics, because there's obviously a camaraderie there, and someone coming in from the outside with a big profile especially could ruffle a few feathers. But I think when you're at an Olympic Games,
the feathers that get ruffled in these circumstances are always the insecure feathers, and it's the same with the Ireland soccer team in men's and women's when we qualify for tournaments. It's never the best players who are like, oh, I can't believe that a really talented player is joining the squad. Do you know what I mean? Like, so this is big time. If it is big time or it isn't, and if everybody's we're a settled team, it's like, that's not how sport works.
At a tournament, are you not only as strong as your most disgruntled feather?
No, you're as strong as your weakest link. You know, if your weakest link is so weak that they're getting pissed off that a good player is joining the team, it's like, well, you shouldn't deserve to be here. So look, if there are those people, then they will identify themselves pretty early, and that's good. It's like those people who out themselves as anti-vaxxers on Twitter, like, oh, thanks, mute.
Well, she's obviously got pace, she's obviously got the ball handling skills, the vision, so I'm excited to see it. Like, it's going to be it's obviously a disappointing one for me, GA fans as well, but like, she'll be back presumably. This is not a
handier trip from the National Sports Campus to Meath training than it is to Paris than it is from Australia.
See, these annoying people like Jenny Claffey who are so good at so many sports that they just decide, I'm going to be an Olympian in that sport. Paddle, I'll do that one. And Vicki Wall's like, sevens, I'll be class at that as well, so I'll just become an Olympian. But why not? Why would you not want to become an Olympian? So, like, fair play to her.
How many? The thought as well. I mean, Michael Jordan tried baseball there for a while in the mid-90s.
That's different,
isn't it? Of it.
Yeah.
And you can actually, if you execute it.
Well, the strike was on. There's been a revision done of Jordan's baseball ability. There was the strike happened, and that prevented him. And then whatever other issues were going on in his life got sorted out.
Was he any good at baseball?
I think there's a revision suggesting that he could have made it if, like, there had been a few little things had to go his way and they didn't go his way, and also something else happened. Did his dad get killed in the meantime? Is that what happened?
Oh yeah.
And so you need to watch Jordan Rides the Bus again.
All that from The Last Dance.
Been a long time since I've seen it, but they kind of passed over it a bit. Anyway, look, Vicki Wall, unbelievable, and it's an incredible marketing coup. All of a sudden, the GAA community is interested in the Sevens team heading to the World Cup. Somebody at the IRFU knows what they're doing, and I'd love to know the athletic profile, like in terms of the 7-cone time and the reaction speeds, and what it is that they've decided that they think this is actually worth pursuing beyond it being an amazing piece of marketing for them. So best of luck to Vicki Wall and to the Rugby Sevens.
Wonder as well if Meath had gone all the way. Obviously the exit of the championship to Kerry last weekend. I think the 7 series doesn't start back up now till December, so she's got 5 months to hone her skills and kind of improve her craft. Maybe if Meath had gone all the way, her decision might have been different, but maybe not. It's a boost for Irish Sevens for sure. You want the big names in the squad, don't you? Like, improve the interest, increase the interest.
It's 7:54 this morning. If you want to get in touch, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock this morning. Keith Treacy is going to join us, talk to us about Shamrock Rovers crashing out of the Europa League last night. They're now in the Europa Conference League. We'll also preview the rest of the action and what it means for the status of the League of Ireland at the moment. It's a big blow. Sarah Donovan's going to give us our honest broker opinion on the game this week. We'll get the view from both Limerick and Kilkenny over the next couple of days. We have John Duggan on the Open. Cathal Dennehy is going to talk to us about Rashida, and she finished second last night on her full professional debut, but it's also been a great week. Sophie O'Sullivan winning at the under-23. Israel Olatunde making the final of the 100 metres and the 4x100. Did they set a national record, I think? Anyway, we'll get all the details from Cathal at that. And then Sue Ronan's final preview. We've been previewing the World Cup with Sue Ronan for about 9 months now, but this will be the final one that we get to do. And then some Lawrence Donegan goodness on Rory McIlroy in the Open from 9:30.
Don't scoff, please, at the Johnny Evans short-term deal at Manchester United, because he is a fine player. Shane, agree? 35-year-old.
Certainly was a fine player, yes.
Would you rather first game of the season, injury crisis happens, would you rather Harry Maguire or Johnny Evans?
Johnny Evans.
I'm actually leaning towards Johnny Evans.
Johnny Evans is a fantastic footballer. One of the biggest mistakes Louis van Gaal made was immediately selling Evans. And where did he go? Was it Stoke
West
first
Brom.
and then West Brom?
It was West Brom.
Was it immediately to West Brom? Yeah,
very sure it was West Brom.
And then he had.
Did he go to Stoke?
Yeah, I think he went to both.
Did he not finish his,
he went to both. I know he's Leicester. Yeah, Shane had.
Because I remember
he was Leicester for sure for a while. But he's a brilliant footballer.
Steve Bruce was looking at defenders and picked somebody else for more money over Johnny Evans when he was the Villa manager. It was West Brom.
When went to Stoke, yeah, West Brom and Leicester.
So what was the order?
United, then he had loans at Royal Antwerp and Sunderland, and then West Brom 2015.
So he finishes at Stoke.
Yeah. He never went to Stoke.
Never went to Stoke. I just made that up.
Yeah,
I don't know where I got that from. It was in my head anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So he has a short-term deal to play against Leon in Edinburgh.
You can fix that in post.
And Wrexham in San Diego on Tuesday. But the second game he's contracted for is the Youth Academy. So he's basically helping out the young lads. So they're doing this to help him find the club, but it's a short-term deal, so he's registered to play in these friendlies. But I think they should give him a little 6 to 12 month deal. No problem. No problem saying Johnny Evans.
Oh no, I actually really like Johnny Evans. I respect the career that he's put together. As I was saying, when I can't remember who it was, Villa signed instead. It was like idiotic, and then he goes on and plays much better. Anyway,
yeah.
It was Steve Bruce being bad, and it was like, this is fairly obvious. He's right there. You know, surely. Anyway, maybe it was because I don't know.
He's been at United since he was 9. Like, even I listened to that that Man United, the official club podcast. Is his wife Helen is one of the presenters on that. Like the family live and breathe.
Ah, right.
United, so
because there was a link with Celtic where Brendan Rodgers was going to bring him as they had a relationship, and I was thinking that's a really good signing for Celtic. There'll be European football for him. There'll be loads of games.
I'm reminded of the time when he's at a press conference with Alex Ferguson, and his then girlfriend is working in the media at United.
Helen,
Helen.
Yeah.
And then Johnny kind of very kind of shyly says to Fergie, like, "Oh, that's my missus," and then Fergie's loving it, like, it was like, "I'll get a ring on her, son. Get a ring on her." And then there's the other time when he absolutely effed Evans out of it against AC Milan in the Champions League, very publicly in front of everyone. We got a little snippet into what he's like behind the scenes. I think it's a good signing. Also, by the way, there's a lot of people yesterday and the day before complaining that we weren't talking about Declan Rice to Arsenal. Lads, we did it 2 weeks ago for about 3 days in a row. The three of us were having a debate about Declan Rice. It's only because he took so long to actually sign him that by the time he signed him, it was like, oh, we've already done that. But Declan Rice to Arsenal is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
huge deal.
Not as big as Onana in terms of the difference that you're going to make to the team. I saw somebody has put together a Onana bloopers reel, and was like, "Oh, look at this! He's a goalkeeper. He's made loads of mistakes." Like, yeah, he's played 10,000 games and he's made loads of mistakes because he's taken some brave chances. The De Gea blooper reel, who's taken no chances ever in his entire life, is actually worse.
I thought you meant the Onana doping violation. Remember that a number of years ago?
I didn't. That was again it's hard to keep up with all of the footballers who've had little doping violations. How much of a ban was it?
I think he got 12 months, but served
12 months in football. It must have been bad.
I think he served 9.
Sure, look.
Yeah, and ended up missing a decent amount of a season, obviously. He says I can't remember the exact drug. I can find the name of it here, but he says he mixed it up. It was his wife's medication.
That's true. Easily done.
Easily done, yeah.
In fairness, in the dark, Who doesn't accidentally take the wrong tablet?
Sorry, so yeah, tested positive for the diuretic drug furosemide.
A diuretic, of course. We all have loads of diuretics lying around.
You do.
I always need something to make me piss.
Yeah.
So it's like life would be so much better if I just had access to a little diuretic, because it doesn't do anything else, those diuretics, except make you piss.
No.
It doesn't do anything else. Don't look into any other side effects of it or any other abilities that it has to help you. It does nothing.
Yeah.
Tracy just walked into the production box there and got the best out of context chat ever.
Yeah. That was actually,
his face says
it was February 2021, the ban.
Which is recent enough.
Yeah, played for Ajax 6 times the following season and then left for Inter when his contract expired. There was obviously all the controversy at the World Cup in Qatar, or in Qatar as well, where he plays the first group game for Cameroon. They lose to Switzerland, and then he has a massive row, falling out over the style of play, and leaves the World Cup Roy Keane style.
Yeah.
Remember that? The Cameroon keeper, yeah. So that was a bit awkward. And like, he's obviously he would be the number one keeper for Cameroon, only for
his own man.
He's his own man. He does what he wants.
I think that his performance was excellent, really, really excellent
in the Champions League. Yeah,
so it's great.
If he produces at that level for Manchester United, I think it's going to completely transform their ability to play the game that they want to do. And all of a sudden, the additions that they've made is like, you go back to the additions that Liverpool made that transformed the team. It's like Man United needed a midfielder, they've got a midfielder. They needed a goalkeeper, they've got a goalkeeper. They're very close to signing the 20-year-old Danish striker. So we shall see.
Onana, Evans, Mount, new signing contracts, Rashford. What a core.
Can I ask you a quick question? This came up in the office yesterday. What are your thoughts on grown adults, men and women, wearing football jerseys? My take, before you start, is so I would wear the name of a footballer on my back as long as I'm older than them. You can't get a name. Like, some of my mates have Rashford in the back of their jersey, and I'm like, man, you're 5 years older than him. Like, so it's a bit weird.
Sorry, you would wear the name of a footballer who was older than you?
Yes.
Not your... okay, go on, yeah.
Yeah. Not the other way around.
Not creeping on them.
No, of course. But a lot of my... so there was one person in particular in the office yesterday who felt vehemently about this. And I said, if you wear a county jersey to a festival or a bucket hat, he was like, no. You can't wear a county...
You can't wear a bucket hat for us, off. Go on.
Well, you can wear a bucket hat.
You can't.
If it's a county jersey.
What?
And would you not wear a jersey?
Oh, these.
Yeah.
No, come on. They're like 1990s.
That'll look good, yeah.
They're good at festivals.
But they're not good at festivals. You look like somebody's only on day release.
One person in particular in the office yesterday had very strong feelings that as an adult you cannot wear a football jersey. That you reach a certain age.
Who was it?
Nathan Murphy. Okay, I'm just going to say it. Nathan Murphy.
I'm fairly sure I've been at Croke Park with him in a Mayo jersey.
No, that's okay.
He says at a match you can wear it, but if you wear it down to the shops, you're a disgrace, basically.
I'd say the following: going to a match,
judge not lest ye be judged.
Playing a match, playing Astro, like, you can wear it. Around the house, no problem at all. Taking out the bins.
Around the house is like...
I would say the more hipster the jersey, the more acceptable it is to wear.
Retro jerseys are grand in all occasions.
Or like third world footballing nation.
I was in Cyprus there. One of the lads got a Paphos FC jersey. No problem with that.
Did he wear it around to...
I don't know if he wore it to interviews or anything, but he was wearing it.
Basically, Nathan, he had an issue with people, grown adults in their 50s and 60s, wearing footballers who are in their 20s on the back of their jersey. Fun Police.
It's very past remarkable from Nathan. Very unlike him.
Fun Police straight out of Templemore, Nathan Murphy. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, the head of a guard, all right. 3 minutes past 8 this morning. OTB AM live every morning from 7:30. Sports breakfast show from Off the Ball. During the ad break, a clip from the latest episode of the Football Pod, where the lads paid tribute to Meath's Tailteann Cup win. The Football Pod is in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the Football, Hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. Check out the hashtag The Toughest for more. After the break, Keith Treacy.
OTB AM. The Coigig Pod on Off the Ball.
Just the old Olympic champions, no big deal. Been so focused on like the big opener against Australia that kind of forget the profile that Canada come into this tournament with. But most of the chat around them has been about industrial dispute that's been going on.
We could start stirring a little bit, right? Like trying to plant some seeds.
Our federation loves us now.
Keep up to date with all the WSL action every Tuesday and subscribe to the feed in the OTB SPORTS app now.
I don't know. I mean, it's gonna take. He's still on a building process, but I definitely think that what they have done has been phenomenal because they were judged as they were kind of being criticised as if they were almost a Division 1 team this year. Do you know, like they were being really examined. What are these about this year? And they were taking some criticism. So to blood a young team through criticism is so hard. I mean, so mentally draining for everyone involved. So for them to come out and deliver a couple of very good displays, not just the final, a couple of very good displays with that young team after taking a bit of a pasting around the county and in the media all year, I think is an unbelievable result for them. And like they can only grow. And I always say that team holiday, get that young group in and get them tighter, get them believing that they're on this journey. Because they can be now. They can take Meath football back up to the top if they want to, but they need to get tight. They need to kind of block out all the noise, get on that holiday, have a good time, and decide we're going back to work again in the winter. And if they do,
Rook will be on to you for all the spots in Vegas, will he?
Cancun is the
open goal. Yeah.
I don't think they should go to Vegas. They'd be relegated straight to 4.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.
Right, you're very welcome back. 5 minutes past 8 this morning. Keith Treacy is with us. Keith, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm very well, lads. How are you?
Before we get into Rovers and the disappointment of them crashing out last night, we were just talking about the Dele Alli interview, and one of the big takeaways, and is kind of been spoken a good bit about it since, is the use of sleeping tablets in football. And I definitely remember talking to John Giles about how he couldn't sleep after games. It'd be like 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. The adrenaline was still pumping through his body, and so you'd kind of have the blues the next day from it. Now, that's the late 50s, 60s and 70s. Nowadays, if you can't sleep, what happens?
You get sleeping tablets. But now the big one for me, I generally wouldn't take them after games. I was out getting drunk, so I didn't need sleeping tablets. But before games on a Friday night in a hotel, you just knock on the doctor's door, or the doctor would come down to dinner with you, and they'd just be handed out.
Right.
It would be no great deal. You just say, I'm struggling to sleep. There you go, 2 sleeping tablets, no problem.
And do you not wake up feeling a bit groggy and therefore not at your very best as a footballer the next day?
No, not really.
The trade-off is you feel if you're not going to sleep, you're not going to play well. If you sleep, at least you've got some chance of playing well.
Yeah, sometimes for players, you just get into this rhythm of you take a sleeping tablet, you go to sleep, you wake up, you have your coffee, you go to the game, and it just becomes a routine. So yeah, sometimes I never felt groggy. I always felt good, and you know, like I say, footballers are very superstitious with this stuff. So you have one good game after having a sleeping tablet on a Friday, you do it the next Friday and the next Friday, and before you know it, you're quickly into a habit, and it's not a good thing. But towards the end, I came away from football in England about, I think it was 2013-14, and the doctors were starting to clamp down on it. They weren't handing them out quite as readily, but you were getting them. You just had to be a little bit more persistent with your complaining, but they were clamping down on it. But it's still very, very persistent.
Because I don't know if people haven't seen the Boris Becker documentary. After his incredible early success, there's this period where he's not great and he's a complete playboy and having the crack, but he's addicted to sleeping pills at one stage in it as well, and has to come off them, and it's really difficult for him. And when you stopped taking them, was it easy, or was it straightforward, or was like, could you?
I just got through it. It was, you know, when I came back and even playing for Barnsley towards the end, when I was staying in hotels, I wouldn't be getting sleeping tablets, and I'd just be sitting there staring at the ceiling most of the night, and you'd wake up and wouldn't feel great, and you're just in a bit of a groggy mood, and you're thinking, I didn't sleep well, you don't play well, and you sort of have to, you get in this rut, and you sort of have to kickstart yourself out of it and just, you know, cop on a little bit. But yeah, it does, you do get into that habit of just taking them, and before you know it, it becomes the norm, and you know, it's not easy, but yeah, I think a lot of players are probably struggling with stuff like that, and it's just the wonderful, weird world of football.
Was it more prevalent, Keith, at more clubs than others? Like, I was chatting to a former professional Premier League footballer quite recently, and he was saying it was everywhere. Like, every footballer he knew was on sleeping tablets.
Everywhere. Like, literally, you go down for dinner at 7 o'clock at night in the hotel on a Friday night, and the doctor would just be there, and he'd be literally going, and he'd just be popping them out, and people would just have their hands out, would be going over lads' shoulders. It was literally the exception. You might get one or two who go, no, I'm okay, but generally most of the squads I was in, everybody was popping sleeping tablets at night.
And here's the thing, right, if they work for you and you're not getting addicted to them, that's fine, but if that's the only way you can sleep in advance of big occasions, then it becomes slightly problematic.
Yeah, well, this is what I'm saying. Towards the end,
did you get told? So towards the end, they started to say, "By the way, this could be a problem, but here you go."
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people, like, there was at the start when I broke into first teams, there was maybe one or two lads that would take sleeping tablets. Right. Then 2 or 3 years in, it would be the majority of the squad, and then I think the doctors and the managers were starting to cop on that 90% of the squad are taking sleeping tablets on a Friday night, and yeah, they did start to clamp down on it, but then. Like, I've had ones where the doctor would say to the manager, okay, I won't be handing out them, but then you'd walk in the corridor and he'd give you 2 and you'd go to sleep. So it'd be behind managers' backs as well.
Could you sleep without them in advance of a match?
I could sleep, but like I said, there'd be an awful lot of lying there, staring at the ceiling, scrolling through my phone. Yeah. Eventually I would get to sleep, but it wouldn't be as quickly. Maybe it's just a bit of a placebo effect in it all, but yeah, if I pop the sleeping tablet by 10:30, I'm generally in bed, tucked up and sleeping.
Right. Okay, really interesting stuff. Let's get on to Rovers last night, which was less interesting, but it's a big setback for the league. Like, we can talk about Rovers specifically, but we really need our teams performing well in Europe, and just at the moment, for whatever reason, we're not performing well in Europe.
Yeah, well, look, Rovers in the game last night, I think they did okay. I think Breidablik are an awful lot better than people gave them credit for. I think on the face of it, people thought an Icelandic team won't be that good. And in fairness now, Iceland are a decent international team. I get it with the Faroes, I get it with Gibraltar, I get it with Luxembourg. People half dismissing them teams, but Iceland, Breidablik, very, very good team. And the first 45 minutes in Tallaght is what killed Rovers. They didn't turn up in the first 45 minutes. The second goal for Breidablik, I think your man tries to cross it, it just ends up in the back of the net. I think they're quite lucky with that. And look, Rovers away form in Europe hasn't been good, but the way, like, when Rovers get the goal away, Sean Hoare is playing the left of a back three and he's in midfield trying to press the ball. You think, like, even what's the point? Just defend the space, keep it tight, keep it narrow. In the last quarter of the game, then you go and try and get something, because it's only a 1 goal deficit. When they hit the back of the net, I thought, right, it's really, really hard. Now it's become nearly impossible, and they gave up 3 chances in a row. Rovers, it wasn't like they were dominating the game and Breidablik went bang and it was like within 10 minutes they had 3 chances, and a very good team would have hit the back of the net 3 times. Breidablik managed to do it once and then they did it twice, and it was just, I don't want to say that the setup from Rovers was naive, because that's how Rovers play, that's how they play in this league, but I think they should have played a little bit deeper, don't give any space in behind, make it really difficult, and try and get Towell and Burke an awful lot closer to Gaffney, which they did do, but they were leaving too much space in behind. They were on the halfway line at times, which for me is a little bit naive in hindsight.
Rovers did have significant injuries. I think both first choice wing backs and obviously Jack Byrne are out, and although they have a much bigger squad than everybody else and a much deeper squad than everybody else in the League of Ireland, they probably can't afford to have the pace of the players that were missing on the wings, and also just Jack Byrne's experience and creativity.
Yeah, well, look, I get that. Jack Byrne, a big miss for Rouge, a big miss as well. But Graham Burke, he come on in the second half of the first leg, looked really good for 10 minutes, looked like he could make something happen, played the majority of the game last night, scored a penalty, but you could see when he got taken off, he was screaming in anger, he wasn't happy, he was effing and jeffing, and that, I think that was the frustration in his performance, that he didn't really play well. And although there was a lot of endeavour, they ran around, they tried, but in terms of personal performances, I don't think any of the Rovers players are walking away thinking I played well today. It was they tried, like I say, it's hard to be critical of players when they are trying and they're running around, but I just think standing on the halfway line, 20 minutes into the first half, getting balls clipped down the side, it's inviting pressure, and I think Rovers just did it too many times.
Roberto Lopez beaten for pace for the first Breidablik goal. Like, his performances lately have been, I guess, now what you expect of Pico. Like, in years gone by, he's been maybe struggling a bit lately.
Yeah, look, I like Kiko Lopez, I like Sean Hoare and Dan Cleary. I think they're 3 really, really good centre halves, but when you have them 3 lads standing on the halfway line, they are quick, but there's quicker players out there for them, and if I seen them 3 standing on the halfway line as a centre midfielder, I'm thinking this is going to be a decent day for me, because I have all the space in the world down the channels to hit them. I can go down the side of Lopez, and I just thought the back 3 were exposed, and I don't think there's an awful lot of pace in the back 3. That's why I think it's nonsensical to be standing on the halfway line. You can do it in the League of of Ireland. But when you go into these European games, you have to show Breidablik a little bit of respect, stand off a little bit, let them frustrate them, let them try and keep the ball but frustrate them, and try and play for moments in the game, and then towards the end you start throwing big punches. But they were out of the game before they even got a foothold in it.
Is their recruitment wrong for Europe? Is it okay for Ireland, for the League of Ireland, but not good enough for European football?
No, I wouldn't say that. I just don't think. Look, I think obviously Breidablik are better than people give them credit for. I think that's the underlying thing here. But I think a lot of them didn't turn up. Graham Burke is Jack Bourne's a big mix. Graham Burke didn't play particularly well. Farouja would be a big impact on this team as well. And I think maybe tactically, it's like I say, it's very, very hard to be critical of Stephen Bradley and this Shamrock Rovers team, but I think in hindsight, if he could have it back, maybe play a little bit deeper, a mid to low block, and really suffocate that space in behind, because they're very agile up front.
The point about not having the pace in the back three, have they recruited pace in the team anyway?
Yeah, well,
are they a bit short of pace at this level?
I think all over the pitch, I think they're short of pace. I think that obviously Cavan is not. There's a lot of players there that are not slow, but you're thinking Graham Burke, good player, but he's more of a ball manipulator, doesn't run away from people. Jack Bourne, the same, ball manipulator, doesn't run away from people, can open people up with his passing. Rory Gaffney at times, he's getting the ball into his chest, he will run down the channels, but again, doesn't exactly run away from people. And when Gaffney comes to the ball, you need people threatening in behind to get the press a little bit looser. And look, there was moments in the game, Rory Gaffney had a snapshot that went really close, the goalkeeper made a decent save, but like I say, the game last night was quite a decent tempo. They were playing forward early, Rovers, in the first 10 minutes. They looked decent, I thought, with Burke and Towell and Pilm all committing to the press. I thought this is really brave, but then when you go and lose 2-1, it becomes into the realm and naive again.
The lack of goals has to be a concern, doesn't it? Like that penalty last night's the first goal in what, 4 matches for Rovers? That's a poor return for a team that's supposedly the best in the country.
Yeah, and it's like, I think they had 60% of the ball in the first half and 60% of the ball in the second half, so they had the lion's share of possession in both halves, and just failing to be really productive with it. And they got shots off, but I'm not sitting here saying, that chance they should have scored, that chance they should have scored. I think the Sean Hall one where he takes a touch in the box, his first touch is good, but there's 2 or 3 Breidablik players in front of him. He would have done very well to squeeze that past anybody. They'd 1 or 2 chances where he huffed and puffed, but yeah, the quality of chance that Rovers are making at the minute is not up to the standard that you would think. And like you say, in this league they'll get away with that. They'll hit the back of the net, they'll make better chances. But
because that was, I think, Stuart Burns' point, that they're not being driven to excellence, they're being driven to grand, and that's enough to win the League of Ireland, but it's not inspiring them to go above and beyond to reach a point where they're doing stuff that they've never done before, and they're creating their own sense of history in European football. Is that not taking into context the fact that the rest of Europe is actually light years ahead of? So Iceland, for example, you make the point about their international side. They obviously beat England in the Euros when Roy Hodgson was the manager, and then there was like all this kind of, how the hell did this happen? They invested loads of money in facilities. They've loads of indoor training facilities that their tiny population uses during the winter, and the contact hours with the players is higher than our contact hours, and so therefore they're coming off a higher base, and we shouldn't ignore that. But at the same time, Stuart's point was essentially there's no great rival pushing them and putting them to the pin of their collar to the point where they're in games like this and they're thinking their way through it, or they're coming up with something different.
Yeah, look, I get that, but I would be putting the mirror up to the lads and thinking, right, you can win the league at a canter, you aren't really at full tilt to win the league, but you need to look at yourselves and I know I played for St. Pat's when we were in Europe, and as soon as you go into the dressing room, the first game of pre-season, you start talking about the European game. So there's no lack of motivation here for the Rovers players. There really isn't. So to be saying, well, they're having an off week in the league here and there, and that hasn't been great. This has been coming in the pipeline. They knew it was coming. I expected them to raise their levels. I did. And look, on paper, with Rovers league form, you could probably think this is no surprise for them to lose to Breidablik, because they haven't been great in the league. And I know there's people screaming they're top of the league, they're winning at a canter, but their performances individually, their standards that they can reach, they haven't quite reached. And yeah, maybe it took me years to find out as a professional footballer, you can't just turn it on like a tap. It doesn't just turn on. It needs to be an every time thing. So if Rovers aren't getting the consistency in the league, it's only logical to think that they're not going to hit the levels in Europe, and they haven't. But Look, I think they just need to look at themselves and be more driven by themselves and think, like, I want to play well in Europe, I want to put myself in the shop window and not worry about how the league is doing.
Neil Smith says, tactically so conservative by Bradley over both legs. They had nothing to unlock Breidablik. Kenny is really lively and he allows Gaffney to peel off and make runs. Pity he didn't start last night. So
what does he mean by conservative? Because I thought he was really aggressive in his press and playing high forward tempo. Like the amount of numbers he was like, he only left O'Neill in the centre mid position. Towell, Poon, Burke, Finn, Kavanagh were all committing to the press. So to say it was conservative, I don't know about that. I'd have probably liked to see him play a little bit more conservative and drop back a little bit and squeeze and make it really horrible and play for moments in the game. But that's not the Rovers way. I get that.
Okay, so you don't think he's tactically conservative generally then?
No, I think he's quite expansive and open with how he tries to play football, Stephen Bradley. I think it's lovely on the eye, but when you're coming in and you're losing 2-1, I don't think that really matters. I think there was an avenue for Rovers to win that game last night, but I think it was more of a grinding win than an open, expansive win.
What about the point about starting Johnny Kenny in these games? Like, you brought him in on loan from Celtic, and he does seem like he is a slightly different player from the other players they have.
Yeah, well, I don't think you can play Kenny up by himself just because he's so young. I think he'd get lost up there. I think even Gaffney at times was isolated in the first leg. So if you play Kenny up there, you have to play Gaffney with him, and then that means maybe Burke is coming out of the team. And I was delighted that Burke did play again. In hindsight, he didn't play well. Maybe you could have played Kenny, but I thought starting with Burke was a good shout, but didn't quite play well. And look, Towell and Burke did get close to Gaffney, so he wasn't as isolated. And look, I do like Kenny. I think spinning into the channels, I think he's really, really agile. He is quick and he's a decent finisher, but you can't just throw lads into these European games that haven't played before. So I wouldn't say I'd have liked to see him play, but Gaffney was always going to start.
Tom McDonald writes in the Irish Independent today, Keith, as well, talking about the Rovers' legacy and on whether it adds an asterisk their lack of form in Europe. Like, for a team to have a proper legacy, especially League of Ireland team, do you need to have a European pedigree as well as all the titles domestically?
I think it helps. It definitely helps for the legacy, but I don't think it's the be all and end all. I think they've been very, very good in the league over the last couple of years. They've dominated, pretty much been untouchable, and it's been like that for a long time in the league. So we shouldn't dismiss that. But again, I think they need some sort of European run, some sort of thing to get us on the edge of our seats, get into the group stages, even if it is the Conference League this year. If they can get into the group stages of that, then I think that would be a success. But it's not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy. It's a long old slog from here to get to the group stages.
3 games in 6 weeks, is it?
Yeah. Now they've got the squad, and maybe the injuries start to clear up. I don't know what the profile of Farrugia and Jack Burns' injuries are, but this is going to be a sobering moment for them. There's going to have to be some hard conversations had, right?
Yeah, look, I would have thought so, but again, I wouldn't overreact to this. I do think the League of Ireland is in a decent place. I do think it's getting stronger all the time. I know Rovers getting beat by Breidablik is probably a shock, but look, give Breidablik a bit of respect. They're a decent team. Every one of their players seemed comfortable on the ball. They were all athletic. They pressed well, very well drilled, very rigid, didn't give up an awful lot of chances. So I would give a little bit of credit to Breidablik rather than pressing the panic button on the League of Ireland.
The concern is they find out this evening who they play in the Europa Conference League qualifiers. So it's Klaksvik from the Faroe Islands or Ferencváros. Probably have more European pedigree, I guess. But that was scoreless in the Faroes, and you'd imagine Ferencváros will have enough to win that game tonight. But all of a sudden you're going into a game against a team from the Faroe Islands who have had a pretty decent result in Europe, drawn with a team like Ferencváros. So, like, as you say, like,
do they not play the winners? No,
they play the losers of that tie, the defeated team. So, like, which could well be the Faroe team. But if you lose to them, then all of a sudden there's question marks over the league.
Yeah, again, but I think that's a very broad comparison. People saying, the League of Ireland up against a Faroe Islands team, we should beat them. I don't think it's as black and white as that. I think there is some decent gems in this league, and look, in the European competition. So look, I don't think you can throw a blanket and say we should beat every Faroe team there is out there. There is some decent teams. So look, we'll wait and see what they're like and see who they get, but I do expect Rovers now to go on a little bit of a run. Whether they get to the actual league stages or not remains to be seen, but I think they should win at least a couple of games.
What about Pats against Dudelang? They looked like things were going pear-shaped for them, but they got themselves back into the game.
Yeah, they did. They were dominated really from start to finish. They were poor in possession, lost the ball. They were very, very sloppy at times. And when Donegan went 2-0 up, you thought this is really, really poor. And I thought the game. I heard somebody summing the game up saying it was a really poor performance, but a decent result for St. Pat's, and that's probably the best way you can put it. That they were dominated for 90 minutes, managed to nick a goal, and a 1-goal deficit going into Inchicore on Thursday is not the worst thing in the world. So Inchicore will be bouncing on Thursday night. I'm doing the commentary for that, so I'm really looking forward to it, and very, very hopeful that Pats can do something. But Chris Forrester, Jake Mulroney, Conor Carty, all these lads that have been really turning up in the league will have to turn up. Big players will have to turn up on the night, and like I say, very, very hopeful. But Donegan again are probably a little bit better than people get them credit for.
Yeah, Pats have a relatively young team as well, so like there is a possibility for these games to have a massive impact if they were to win one and to get on a bit of a roll and suddenly understand what's possible.
Yeah, well, the likes of Sam Curtis, Mason Millier, there's one or two others as well in the squad. Young Reece Bartley might even make the squad. So, yeah, look, it's really, really good for them. These are the times where, as you're young, you start to think this is the norm. Playing in Europe, I wanted to be like this all the time. So this will drive them on to want to be finishing in the top 4 every year with St. Pat's and wanting European competition. So, yeah, success just breeds more success, and it's great to see that average age of the Pats team is so low, and the pathway from the academy to the first team is
the opposite. Dan and Johnny were making the point the average age of the Rovers team is very high, and that's a team built to win the League of Ireland, but that actually they need an infusion of youth.
Yeah, possibly. But look, if I had that Rovers team on paper, you would think I'd be fairly happy, but there's some outstanding talents in there. And look, I still think Graham Burke, his goals return in the league has been quite good, but I still think there's a little bit more to come from him. And like I said, Ferrugia and Jack Bourne coming in will be make a big difference to that Shamrock Rovers team.
Keith, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Cheers.
It's 25 minutes past 8 this morning here on OTB AM, the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. Turning our attention to hurling. Sarah O'Donovan, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm great. Revel County's looking great. Big World Cup day tomorrow.
Jersey on as well. Love this.
Yeah. What is the jersey?
2002 under-19 championships. So Sue Ronan, who you'll have on later, gave me the nod that year. I haven't worn it since. These are Excel lads. These are massive. I can't believe they let us run around in these. They're ridiculous.
I did not know you were an Ireland underage international.
Yeah, briefly 3 caps. Yeah, from Sue. So there you go.
Another sickening, multi-talented.
I've no ACL left, lads. Just remember, you can overdo these things.
Well, I was gonna, if I was to tap you on the shoulders as a 16-year-old and go, it's going to cost you your ACL, but this is going to be your career, you'd have been like, yeah, absolutely.
Here you go.
A quick word on Vicki Wall. It looks like she's going to be joining the Ireland Sevens. Somebody in our comments is making the point that the current Ireland Sevens captain won an All-Ireland with Wicklow. So it can be done. I just want to get this fact correct. I've lost the current captain of the Sevens, according to Andy Connolly, has an All-Ireland medal at Wicklow and was poached after that, so it's definitely doable. It would be a remarkable story for like the totemic figure of the Meath team that came up from intermediate to senior to then go to Australia to then ultimately end up, if she makes it to Paris for the Olympics. That's one of the all-time great Irish sports careers.
I have to agree with you. She is a generational talent, and I suppose Louise Galvin from Kerry, was in with the rugby sevens for a long time before she went back to Kerry this season, or last season, I think. Certainly, it's a massive opportunity, and I think one Vicki will deliver on. I won't be surprised if she makes that final team.
Let's talk hurling. You've picked 15s that you expect to start, or would they be the 15s that you would start?
Both.
Right. So we'll start with Limerick, right? It's Nicky Quaid, it's Mike Casey, Dan Morrissey, Barry Nash, it's Diarmuid Burns, it's Will O'Donoghue and Kyle Hayes. So people will notice that there's no Declan Hannon starting there. Dara Donovan, Cian Lynch in midfield, Gerard Hegarty, David Reedy, Tom Morrissey, Seamus Flanagan, Aaron Gillan and Peter Casey. You don't think Hannon's going to start?
No, and if we were listening carefully to Aisling O'Reilly's interview with John Kiley, he may have given away the fourth secret of Fatima. It sounded like Will O'Donoghue was going to be the better for his performance against Galway, and will be at 6 on Sunday.
This is important, right? This because they won and because they always win and they always find a way. We sometimes underestimate the impact of individuals. Like last year things wouldn't have been as close if the full Cian Lynch experience had been there in the final, but Kilkenny really rattled them and had them going the whole way. Taking Declan Hannon out in those final few moments when Kilkenny get their purple patch, it does matter.
I think Kilkenny have a chance here, lads, a big chance, and they're a better team than last year. Certainly, I know they lost to Wexford on the 28th of May, which seems a bit mad because Wexford are now looking for a new manager, and that's the madness of hurling. But what Derek Lyng has done with them in the last 2.5 months, to undo Clare and to do it so well, 20 different players on the pitch, never let up. Interestingly, Seamus Hickey said last week that the physicality that you're looking for with teams is, how close can you get to the action? How close can you get to the player on the ball? And Kilkenny against Clare, it was constantly hooks, blocks, aggression, physicality. That team is completely different to the team that played last year in the final, I would say. And it's completely different to the team that played Limerick in the league. And when I was down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, that game doesn't even exist in the realms of this year's championship.
So you have Kilkenny unchanged from the semi-final if everybody is fit and available, essentially?
That game was practically pitch perfect for Kilkenny. There would be no player that you would take out of that 15 in terms of their work rate, in terms of what they achieved against Clare.
So why are they a different team? Explain that to us.
In terms of their distribution of the ball and their use of the ball and their mixing up of short and long play, they're not direct anymore. They have options. They have a running game. And then you have 5 players coming into the setup in the last 20 minutes. Walter Walsh, Cian Kenny, Padraig Walsh, Richie Hogan, who was the last? Killian Buckley, who gets the goal against Galway. Those 5 players to come in the last 20 minutes against Clare and really settle Clare. By comparison, Clare only brought in 3 subs and brought on Aaron Shanahan in the 71st minute. I think Derek Lyng knows this team inside out and is getting every last inch out of them.
The evolution from last season, it's impossible for us not to compare and contrast the Cody era and the Cody style, but it does feel like Derek Lyng has taken that as a foundation and built on it, as opposed to ripping up the playbook or, it's not... It always feels like it's an implied criticism of Cody that his team didn't do what Derek Lyng's team is doing. But maybe you've got to go through that process to get to a point where everybody has buy-in, everybody believes that they can take a bit more out of the ball, everybody understands that they have what they need to do in their locker and their skill set. And then also, lads, you're not going to beat Limerick doing what you did last year.
Yeah, I felt they were a little too direct last year. They didn't score enough last year. I think they scored 217, but that still wasn't enough. From the point of view of, I suppose, the injuries that Kilkenny had in the lead up to this, they've kind of hit form at the right time. Adrian Mullen's back, Richie Reid is back. I was really impressed with Hugh Lawler at full back. Owen Murphy is titanic inside and goal. Derek has hit a sweet spot with this Kilkenny team, and even Richie Hogan sitting behind him in the Davin stand the last day. Like he annoyed Clare so much in those 10 minutes that he was on. They couldn't leave him alone. That's the kind of, I suppose, what we're looking for from Kilkenny is options and a bit of spontaneity, and Derek has that in spades with them.
There's been so much talk about how to mark Aaron Gillan, Sarah. Whether you get in front of him, you stay behind him. You can't really. Yeah, it's probably the David Clifford conversation all over again. But will Kilkenny be obsessing over that, or are they more so as Lyng, just a focus on ourselves type?
So I think here and with this group, Ronan O'Gara talks about themes and narratives, and with La Rochelle he talked about focusing on the bigger picture and having somebody come in and build a theme for the players to gravitate towards, as opposed to just focusing on Leinster, the team. And I think for this group, for Kilkenny, it'll be more about stopping that legacy, that 4 in a row chasing Limerick team. That great Kilkenny team from 2006-2009 did something incredible, and I suppose no team has done it since the 40s, so they're the standout team. For Lyng and for Kilkenny, I think it's not so much about stopping Aaron Gillan, it's about a team for performance and focusing on motivating the players to focus on that big team performance that stops Limerick from getting a 4 in a row. The All-Ireland medal will be amazing, but I think for them right now they have to focus on something else.
Well, it's a really good point, and I kind of hadn't thought about it that much in the build-up to this, but this Kilkenny team has the potential to become one of the favourite Kilkenny teams of all time. If you stop the 4 in a row, you're like, well, all those debates about who'd be in the starting 15 between the Limerick team and the Kilkenny team. Well, now all of a sudden it's like, well, sorry, did you do a 4 in a row? No, you didn't. This stuff matters. Look, these are counties that have won. In Kilkenny, where they've always won and they've always hoovered up All Ireland like dust. That's an inspiration that I as a Kildare person have no access to. You from Cork definitely have access to it.
Not since the 1940s, actually. Have Cork done such a thing?
But imagine if there was a Cork team that comes next year and stops the Limerick 5 in a row. They would then be considered one of the all-time great Cork teams just for being the spoilers of that party.
And that's enough. That's enough for those Kilkenny lads. Standing on the shoulders of giants. You can imagine if they stopped that on Sunday and you've Tommy Walsh coming down, JJ Delaney, the joy that those Kilkenny lads would have as a unit. It wouldn't be just the 30 lads, it'd be the 100 lads that came before them.
And all of a sudden you walk into a room with those lads and they have 9 All-Irelands, but you're like, yeah, but we're just as good as you now because we stopped those lads being your equals. There's a bond and there's like a little bit of bragging rights.
Full narrative.
That's the theme. That's the narrative. That's the theme. I'm heading to Ballybrown on Friday night, lads, with future All-Star Adam Screeney and Johnny Pilkington, and that Offaly story still lives to this day. So it's like that. It's finding moments, winning individual games. That means so much to individual counties.
And that's the thing, right? Because from the Limerick perspective, they do have individuals who could grip the game and win it on their own, and so Kilkenny need really to make sure that supply lines are stopped. That's why the forward effort on the ball. That's why everybody being alert when the puck out is happening or when the ball's going wide and trickling wide. There's not like we've got like a split second here to relax because all of a sudden Quaid has the ball and it's out to Hegarty and it's in the back of the net and you're like, oh, we switched off for a split second and it's game over.
Yeah, I think from that point of view, that's why I've put Garrod Hegarty back at 10. I think he needs to be the out ball for Quaid, and that he needs to be very sharp on that. From Kilkenny's point of view, Billy Ryan, they suggested last week, didn't go as well against Clare as he would have liked, but his work rate was incredible, and that's the kind of work rate that you're going to need to stop the likes of Barry Nash coming out with the ball, the likes of Mike Casey coming out with the ball. You saw what Kilkenny were able to do to Clare because they had the spare man, with Richie Reid being the spare man in that first half, and how they were able to do really good restarts and find space and pick out pockets. There's going to be no spare man the next day. It's going to be man on man, and every player is going to be touch tight, as physical as they can. It's going to be a rip-roaring contest.
How important is it, Sarah, that Kilkenny don't rush into decision making? Because after the final last year, I think Limerick get the first goal and 2 points. Hegarty obviously gets the goal and ends up being unbelievable throughout. But Shefflin in that semi-final certainly seemed to panic when Limerick got a couple of scores. He changed from the 2 up in the inside forward line and reverted back to 1. And some people felt that was maybe the turning of that semi-final. So sometimes, I guess, when you're playing Limerick, you just can't panic when things are going against you.
Yeah, I think Kilkenny having to go 2 behind against Clare and the momentum shifting to Clare in that semi-final is the perfect example of them not panicking, or them being 2 points down against Galway in the Leinster final and not panicking. They're just workhorses. It's next ball, next ball, next ball. They've been in so many situations this season where they could have lost and should have lost, and they haven't. They're primed for this.
And there's no real fear factor. Like Derek Lynn kind of referenced that this week in some of his media bits. Like Limerick this year, I guess, before the semi-final, I don't think they'd won a game by more than 2 points. So the fear factor that was there maybe 2-3 years ago isn't quite at the same level.
I'd agree. I think that this Limerick team, because of the exposure that they had in that first 25 minutes against Galway, it's probably chipped another bit of I suppose enamel off of the chariot that was so strong. There's so much about Limerick to love, but we've seen weaknesses right through this championship. Tipperary caused them hassle, Cork caused them hassle, Clare caused them hassle, much more hassle than we've seen in previous seasons. So if I was Kilkenny right now, as Paul Murphy said in the hurling pod, you're going up there thinking, I can win this. And Kilkenny are going up there thinking, yeah, we have a chance, we have a massive chance here.
The opposite side of that, of course, is that Limerick have been battle-hardened the whole way through in a way that maybe in previous years they haven't. And so they're going to feel pretty confident about their ability to think their way through whatever difficulties they have in the match. And they haven't so far been overawed by any of the history they've been creating. In many ways, it's actually inspired them. So, I know we're all really keen to talk ourselves into thinking how close this is going to be. But there is also a possibility that we're waiting for that signature performance from Limerick this year, and it might also be coming.
Saving the best till last, perhaps. It would be a fitting end for that group if they do manage to do the 4 in a row. They do deserve to do the 4 in a row in terms of what they've given to the game over the last 4 years and how they've revolutionised it. But isn't that the whole thing with Kilkenny? They spoil all the parties. So from Limerick's point of view, they will be process driven. I think they'll have learned a lot from the Galway game. I've picked Cian Lynch at midfield because I think he will be key there. He was playing very deep in the first half, and when I say very deep, he was very close to the Galway goal in that first half against them. I think he needs to be closer to the Limerick goal to support Will O'Donoghue if Will O'Donoghue's playing at 6, and he did that so well in the second half. I think that's the reason why Galway were beaten.
The Kilkenny strength and depth, I'm just looking at the bench that the lads they took off the bench in last year's final against Limerick. So Fogarty, Walter Walsh, David Blanchfield, Richie Hogan and Alan Murphy. Murphy in injury time come off the bench, but even in that semi-final, the strength and depth they have now compared to then, even again you have Walsh and Hogan, Killian Buckley's there, Billy Drennan is there, so the options that Derek Ling has seem to be more improved than last year even.
Yeah, well, look, Conor Fogarty's playing midfield again this year, revitalised, and what an interception against Clare early on when it looked like there was a massive goal on. But David Blanchfield's gone to 5, Paddy Deegan at 7, the 5 subs he brought on the last I was saying to you. Padraig Walsh scored a point, Cian Kenny scored a point, Killian Buckley comes on, Walter Walsh comes on, Richie Hogan gets 2 frees down in the corner. Those 5 players in the space of the 44th minute to the 70th minute, that was a crucial spell where Clare were very much in the ascendancy, and those 5 players added massively to Kilkenny. So having those to come in, and then you've got Tom Phelan scored a point, Billy Ryan had a point, Hugh Lawler gets a point from full back. This Kilkenny team knows each other so well, and then Captain Fantastic in the corner, Owen Cody 1-5. I think this game is primed to be a spectacle. Now
there's two, right, one last bit, right? If Kilkenny win this, they're a team of destiny with the last minute goal in the Leinster final and the all-time greatest save ever in the semi-final. But if they lose, we'll be like, there was a kind of a fluky way for them to get through here, right?
No, I don't agree with that. I've been watching both teams since February. This is a long beat, This is 7 months of hurling, and I'm going to be gutted that this day next week hurling will be dust. Intercounty hurling will be dust. The club season will be getting up and ready. But these two teams, there's no surprise that they are where they are right now. Kilkenny have learned so much throughout the season, and some of the performances this season were hand over your eyes stuff, and I was very, very critical of them during the league. But that semi-final performance is the best team's peak last, lads.
Is Hurler of the Year, to coin a phrase that's been used in the last week or two, a foregone conclusion at this stage, Sarah, with Galan, or if Kilkenny win and Cody plays well, could that change, or has it already been decided? I guess
it won't be decided until after Sunday. Yeah. Those 70 minutes, and I don't think Galan would take the Hurler of the Year if Kilkenny won it. That's the type of player that he is. I think he will need to have a pitch perfect performance to deserve that, and no better men than Owen Cody or TJ Reid to steal the limelight there.
So you're predicting what exactly?
Limerick, but Kilkenny have a big chance.
Off that fence, sir. Come on.
I do believe that's riding with the hair.
Okay, I'm going with Limerick. Okay, I'm going with Limerick.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Done.
And come here, sorry. What number's on the jersey? We'll ask Sue Ronan why it's not a lower number if you want us to a little bit later on.
Here, this is the squad. 18 in the squad. I got in by the skin of my teeth, but sure, I was from Cork. I was so far away. Yeah. Yeah, Sue will be like, who?
Colum's Colum's nodding his head there.
What's that? What does that mean?
Oh, he agrees. He's from Cork. It's like it was Roy Keane couldn't get in an Ireland team till he came up to Dublin, Fairview Park. They went as far as Fairview Park to watch him, and he was really good in a 3-0 defeat when he was underage, and that was the only time he got selected for Ireland.
I'll give Sue credit. I was playing in Bishopstown, and there was a lad named Darren Kelleher was down to watch a couple of games, and then you get the nod. But then you got the nod by post. I got a letter to be told I was getting an invitation to Dublin.
Lovely.
But that is class. Like I presume you still got the letter, or somebody you like.
All of the letters. There was 3 or 4 of them over that season where you'd be literally waiting for the postman to be told you got selected. So it's a super memory to have. But she did break my heart after that. So
go on. Sure, she's coming on in 10 minutes.
Sure, she dropped me for the 2003 campaign. So there you go. You also get a letter to be told you're not selected.
Oh, right. That's not a great... You're like, the letter with the postmark from the FAI. What?
Yeah.
There you go, lads. That was 2002.
So the end of your Wham scrapbook is a sad one with a sad smiley face.
It is, but I have a huge respect for Sue still. I think she's class. So
good
there
stuff.
You go.
Thanks a million. Enjoy the game, Sarah.
Thanks, lads.
Cheers.
Bye.
Yeah. Sarah Donovan there, giving us her preview for the weekend. Colin didn't even see my reference to the Wham documentary there, and straight over his head.
Yeah.
Now he's interested. Now he's paying attention.
Have you seen it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, I need to watch it. Needless to say.
Yeah. I just referenced it there, Colin, but you weren't paying attention. John Duggan is with us. Sorry, virtual insanity. Yeah, there you go.
You have entered Power Drive.
Ger Shane, good morning.
How are you?
Morning, John.
Good yourselves?
Flying it.
So, the Open begins tomorrow, 6:35 at Hoylake. And I was checking, maybe if you're able to glide across the sea, it's the same distances between here and Cork as it is to get to the Wirral.
Is it?
And Royal Liverpool Golf Club in Hoylake, which is where Rory McIlroy won his last major in 2014, 9 years ago. And it's coming into this, bidding for his 5th ever title. And what do we have here? 18 under par total from Tiger Woods in 2006 at a burnt Hoylake. One driver used all week. Then in 2014, McIlroy got 17 under par. They made the course harder. So they've taken 4 shots back. They made a par 71 from 72. They've lengthened some of the holes. They've created a new hole, which is a tricky par 3 17th hole. And there are 6 out-of-bounds areas on 14 driving holes. So placement and strategy is key this week, lads. The field, 156, including 6 Irish players. Rory McIlroy, Shane Lowry, Seamus Power, Darren Clark, Padraig Harrington, and the late 10 amateur Alex Maguire. The forecast, breezy, perhaps better for early starters, so late afternoon tomorrow, early Friday morning. But the forecast is for rain on Saturday, so could even itself out. You have to be able to play in the wind. Not going to be a gale, I think, this week, but perhaps a bit tricky. We have the likes of Cameron Smith, the defending champion, and Liv Defector, who won the Live London event recently. The world number 1 Scotty Scheffler, John Ram, the Masters champion, Patrick Cantlay, Victor Hovland, Xander Schauffele, Max Homa, Matt Fitzpatrick, Wyndham Clark, the US Open champion, just to name a few. Jordan Spieth, Brooks Koepka won the PGA, as we know.
Ricky Fowler, in the winners enclosure.
That's right. Tyrrell Hatton, Colin Morikawa won this a couple of years ago as well. Tommy Fleetwood, the long-haired lover from Liverpool, and Dustin Johnson, who's the Live secret agent. So, just in terms of the Irish lads, before we get into the picks, I'm not going to talk about Shane Lowry yet, which is probably an indicator, but Rory, we're talking about Rory. Couldn't be better placed, really, could he? Won the Scottish Open last week with a clutch finish, got the last 2 birdies to beat Robert McIntyre, putted that one into the hole on 18 and comes in with a win. Has avoided the media this week. Won at Hoylake, as we know, in soft enough conditions 9 years ago, was second at the US Open, just couldn't get the putts to drop. And what's there not to like? 24 PGA Tour wins.
What are the odds? What is
8-1 for Rory?
And who's favourite? Is he favourite?
Yes, with Scheffler.
Right.
It's a bit like the Grand National, both at the top there, about 8-1. And yeah, so third at St Andrews last year, 6 top 5 finishes at the Open. Low shot into 18 last week was indicative of the fact that he is able to do not just the moon shots, but the low shots as well.
I thought the 18th last week was one of the highlights of his career, because he steps off the driver twice, and he steps off the approach shot, and he steps off the putt because the wind is howling, and all around him everybody is losing their minds, like all his playing partners. It's Fleetwood and I forgot now, but they're having complete meltdowns, and it's taken ages for him to get each
Tom
shot.
Kim, yeah.
And I'm like, I thought it was amazing to be able to, with everything that has gone on, you know, and it's been for him quite a while since he's had putts drop.
Yes,
like at the US
didn't
Open.
hold a putt at the US Open.
Do you know? So I don't know. I just thought it was like
yeah, it was big. I would agree with you. And
they said afterwards, you know, it's big for next week, but it's also big for the rest of the season. It does feel like it's big for the rest of the season. Unfortunately, there's not enough left. Come on.
No, there's not. Seamus Power has had a hip injury, but recovered from that. Missed the cut at St Andrews last year. Tied 13th at the John Deere Classic on his penultimate start. We know he can play links golf, obviously from his experience around the country. Won in windy conditions in Bermuda back in October. Padraig Harrington might have a decent round or two. Be lovely to see him up there in the leaderboard as he was in Scotland for the first 2 rounds last week.
Can he be a challenger, John?
Not a hope.
Not a hope.
Not a hope.
He thinks he can be, but like if he can play like he did in the first 2 rounds last weekend, why can't he keep that going for 4?
Can't do it for 4 rounds. His last best finish at the Open was tied 20th at St Andrews back in 2015. 2 decent rounds in Scotland last week. Like 6 top 10s in the Champions Tour means he's playing very well. I just think at this level, very difficult to see it. And also missed the cut here back in 2014. Darren Clark, once again, not playing as well as Harrington, but likely to defend the Senior Open more than make the cut here. And Alex Maguire, as I said, Florida Atlantic University, 22 years of age, won the St Andrews Links Trophy and reached the quarterfinals of the Amateur Championship to book a spot.
I was away when the Women's US Open was on, but I've got to tell you that the level of excitement in our family WhatsApp group about Anya Donegan was off the charts, leading the US Open in Pebble Beach, having arrived and had her driver broken by United Airlines on the way, and then tweeting out about it, and then to be leading the US Open during the first round at 400 par was absolutely incredible. So big shout out.
Breath of fresh air.
And she's from the Banner.
And
there you go.
Yeah.
Ennis, isn't it?
Yes.
Her her interview
walk and
style
talk
is hilarious.
Incredible.
She's just so laid back,
charismatic.
Yeah. So
do well at Louisiana State.
Yeah, amazing. They were named all Louisiana. I don't know if there must be steep enough competition at that level. And she still has another couple of years left of eligibility, and is going to be playing in Dromoland at the Women's Irish Open. So, yeah. We're keeping an eye.
Definitely bodes well as well, because it's not just Leona, and there's other players coming through, which is fantastic to see. Okay, the picks this week. Obviously, if you're going to get involved, this is a virtual. Don't do it for more than €1 each way. But I've got my old strategies and my own virtual cash and trying to keep a tally where I am through the year. So got a big 5 golfers. Shane Lowry's the headline pick to win a second Open Championship. 33-1 is a big price, I feel. You can get that with Betway, 20 each way virtually. We know we can do it. Won at Port Rush, 64 and 65 rounds in Scotland last week, where he's tied 12th. Top 20 finishes in all 3 majors this year. He got the wrong side of the draw at Hoylake in 2014. One of only a couple of players to do that, but still finished in the top 10. That is a good tiding. He's shown when he likes a course he can repeat. Wentworth is an example of that. Windy conditions is something that a field golfer like Shane Lowry, who's hit the ball really, really well this year, can suit him. I just think the putts need to drop, but why not? I think for Shane Lowry, 33-1 to finish in the top 12, I think is a decent headline pick this week for Shane Lowry. Obviously, I'm going to pick Patrick Cantlay, much to the rage of the world. But there you go. You got to stick to your guns and believe yourself, because
I can't quit you, man.
If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to. 22-1 for 15 each way. Look, just look from a mathematical point of view. 8 top 10s and 17 starts in the PGA Tour, almost half the time. So if that's the case, we're talking about somebody that's got a 47% chance of a top 10 at nearly 5-2 on the each way. That is profit ultimately, including the losing win wager on the each way. 4th in the world, 8th in the betting. There's a discrepancy there because he's just not a flashy guy. People say he doesn't perform in majors. Tied 8th last year on only his 4th Open start at St Andrews. Top 15 finishes in all 3 majors this year. A strategic player. He's got Tigers caddy Joe LaCava on the bag now. First in total driving this season. That is the mixture of distance and accuracy, and you need to drive the ball straight at Hoylake. I think Patrick Cantlay, who plays well in the wind, is geared for a really big finish finish. I'd love to see Larry and Cathal go at it, because they really didn't get on the Ryder Cup a couple of years ago at Whistling Straits. It could be a repeat of the battle. So they're the two main ones. The three outsiders are all from down under, right? After Cameron Smith won last year, Minwoo Lee is 60-1 for 5 each way. 24 years of age, won the Scottish Open on links a couple of years ago, tied 5th of the US Open last month, has got the stinger shot that Tiger Woods used to use, can hit it really, really low, was in the final group of the players, has got a real attitude, really good attitude. His sister won a major, Min Ji Lee, and I think Minwoo Lee is going to be a star. 5 each way 60s. Ryan Fox, 5 each way 90-1. Ryan Fox, remember the Grant Fox, the rugby player for the All Blacks in the 87 World Cup? That's his son. We know he likes links golf, second to Baddy Liffin at the Irish Open, top 5 at Port Stewart, tied 12th last week at the Scottish Open. Was second behind Rory in the race to Dubai last year, and I think Ryan Fox has definitely got an each way chance and the kind of conditions he likes. And the last one is the guy who has got guts, Lucas Herbert, former Irish Open winner, has won 4 times around the world. He's only 27. He's got a brilliant short game, but he's got self-belief. He's 150-1. He was the top 15 in St Andrews last year. He played well on his penultimate start. He's got creative juice in him. He's got a good short game, and he played well in Bermuda where he won there in the windy conditions a couple of seasons ago. So Lucas Herbert 150-1, Ryan Fox 90-1, Minwoo Lee 60-1, all these 5 each way bets. Patrick Cantlay 22-1 for 15 each way. Shane Lowry 33-1 for 20 each way. I'm pretty confident we'll make a profit this week on Virtual Insanity. Obviously don't go heavy if you're at home, just do a euro each way, but it starts 6:35 tomorrow, and we can't wait for 4 great days of golf.
The big news is John Duggan is off the Rory McIlroy major train.
That's it.
Not tipping him.
Not this week. But more than anybody else in Ireland, I hope he wins this week.
And also not off the Cantlay train. Like, he is so boring to watch, Patrick Cantlay. But yet he can still win.
Nothing more than a profit, Shane.
No, that's it.
It's true.
That's your Virtual Insanity.
All right, lads.
Open special edition.
You have entered Power Drive.
It's obviously a golden period for Irish golf. It's also a bit of a golden period for Irish athletics. I'm delighted to say Cathal Dennehy is with us. Cathal, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
You've been on this beat a long time, but it's never been as vibrant and as interesting from an Irish perspective, I suspect.
Yeah, been on it about 10 years now, and we've certainly never had an athlete with the trajectory that Rashida Adeleke currently has. I mean, she is probably, if you're talking about the world's best female 400-metre runner, she's probably number 2 or 3 at the moment, and a month out from a World Championships and 12 months out from an Olympics. That's a very exciting place to be for Irish athletics. So
she made her professional debut last night, and we can get into the semantics of the language, in a 200 metres event in Hungary.
Yeah, she ran 200, her first pro race since going pro and signing with Nike the other day, and she ran 22:36, which is her second fastest time ever. Her national record is 22:34, which she ran with a good tailwind back in Florida in April. And this was very impressive debut to run 200 metres in that time. It really, to me, it's impressive because she's gone from Texas to Hungary. I think that's 7 time zones. She's gone across the world. Often athletes will be a little jet lagged and run a little flat, and the American-based athletes on their first race in Europe. And she's done it right between 2 peaks. So her peak was timed for the NCAA Championships, which were 5.5 weeks ago. And she's obviously building up now towards the second peak, which is the World Champs in a little over 4 weeks' time. And she'll have taken a break after the NCAA Championships and just be back training now and building up the fitness again for those World Champs. So to come out and start like that is highly impressive. And really, it was a rust buster to probably get her ready for the Monaco Diamond League on Friday night, where she'll be taking on the world's best over 400 metres.
So the 400 is definitely the career trajectory. But as a 400 metre runner, you can also run these 200s, which is useful for Diamond League and for championships. If it so works out that you want a rust buster at a major championship, you can do that, I suspect. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she can always run these 200s to get ready, and she is a European under-20 champion at 200 and was, I suppose, a 200 metre specialist until about a little over a year ago, I suppose. And so, yeah, she can keep doing these, but I think the double at the World Championships, while she is qualified now for the World Championships over 200 metres, 99% she won't run the 200 meters at Worlds, because the final or the heats of the 200 meters are the morning of the final of the 400 meters,
right?
Like 7 or 8 hours between them. So assuming she makes the 400 meter final, she won't waste her energy that morning by running the 200. But she'll probably be entered though in case something goes wrong in the semi-final or false start or anything like that.
Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone is a name that I think Derval O'Rourke brought up on the show with us before. She obviously gets to test herself in Monaco on Friday against her. She's gone from hurdles to flat. Will that kind of show us where she's at in comparison to her? I guess she's the one to beat.
Absolutely, yeah. Sydney is, the queen of 400 meter hurdles. She's broken every record and won every medal there is to win in that sphere. And since then, she's looking for a new challenge, and that challenge is breaking what most people consider the unbreakable record of Marita Koch in the 400 meters. That's 47.60. Sydney hasn't got close to that, which speaks volumes about the legitimacy of that record. But she's run 48.74 to win the US title this month, Sydney. So that's about a half a second clear of Rashida's best time on season's best. So Rashida is definitely going to be up against it on Friday night. I wouldn't expect her to, challenge her personal best to 49.20, but if she could run anything like in the mid 49 seconds, that would set her up perfectly. And I think really it's a good test and benchmark a month out for the World Championships about what she's going to be up against, because it's not just Sydney. You've got Natalia Kazmarek in there, a very good Polish athlete who ran a national record of 49.48 last weekend in Poland. So just racing athletes like that, and I think even just stripping away the respect that I suppose Rashida will probably have, even though she won't fear them, and just to get on the track beside them would be a great kind of acid test before she takes them on again at the World Championships.
We were talking in the aftermath of the NCAA victory about the potential for going pro and what it actually means. Now that it's happened, does all of this make sense to you in terms of the planning and how it's all going to work? Presumably Nike came in and were like, this is available to you now, would you like to take it? And the coaching situation is sorted out, and so what can you tell us about that kind of mechanics of that and what it means for where she is at the moment?
Yeah, well, I'm not actually 100% on what her plans are, but I would be 99% sure that Rashida will stay based in Texas, at least until the Paris Olympics, under the guidance of Edric Floriel, because he's guided her so well over the last 2.5 years, and her trajectory just keeps going upwards. And I know Rashida is very focused on education as well, and a lot of people I saw in the comment sections online were like, oh, why is she turning professional? She needs to finish her education. But those aren't mutually exclusive. Normally, if you do turn professional and you want to finish your education, that would be built into your professional contract, that Nike would pay the tuition for the rest of her education. And maybe it'll be next year, maybe it'll be 5 years from now, but she would have the freedom and flexibility to finish her classes, I suppose, at Texas. I think she's only 1 year left. But in terms of her setup, yeah, I'd expect her to be based at Texas. Edric has coached many athletes. He did it when he was college coach in Kentucky. He actually coached Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone before many years ago, so he'll know how to coach against her, I suppose. He did have a group of pros. In recent years, he wasn't coaching any professional athletes in Texas, but he has said he would commit to doing it again for Rashida and, of course, the NCAA 100-meter champion, Julian Alfred. So it will change a little bit the setup, because as a professional athlete, you're not supposed to train with the college team anymore, so it could become more of a lonely existence. There are ways around that. I think if they put you in as a volunteer coach on paper, I think you might be able to continue training with the team. But yeah, so it might just be a little bit set up. It might be a little bit lonelier for Rashida next year, but ultimately I think 95% of her setup will remain exactly the same.
Is there a pathway there in terms of the timing, Cathal? I guess turning pro in the third year of a Olympic cycle, does that make sense in your book? I guess she has the next 12 months to structure as she sees fit.
I think it absolutely does. I mean, people were saying, I know even someone as respected as Eamon Coughlin I saw there, and one of the off the ball clips saying, from a few months back that he thought she should stay in college for another couple of years. But I disagree, I suppose, primarily on a financial level, because Rashida will never get a bigger offer than she's getting right now. In terms of shoe contracts, they don't really reward what you're doing at the moment or what you've done in the past year. It's all a bet. It's a gamble, and it's a gamble on potential. And the time to get the biggest offer by far is when you're on a steep upward trajectory. So if Rashida stayed in college another year and she was running 49.2 and winning NCAAs a year down the road, her offer would actually be way down on what it is is now, because her trajectory is so steeply curving upwards, they're betting that she might be the next Sydney McLaughlin-Leveroni, and that's why big offers will have been put on the table in front of Rashida by multiple brands over the last few weeks. And yeah, it's no surprise to see she's gone with Nike, because they sponsor the University of Texas, and there is a link there with her college coach. So it's exciting times ahead, and I think this is really the perfect time. She's done it all and won it all now in the NCAA, so it's time to take her talent to the Diamond League.
What kind of earning potential does somebody like Rashida Adeleke now have? Like, when we were talking about big offers from the shoe companies, what kind of offers would they be?
They would be, I was at the Oslo Diamond League recently and just asked a couple of agents this, and one of the US based agents who's good experience working with NCAA champions, he said it's hard to know, because with an Irish athlete that they wouldn't really reward your being Irish, because basically the size of the market, you'll be on billboards, you'll be on newspapers, but Nike might look at it and say, well, that's a country of 5 million people, whereas like if you're that in the US and you're in a country of 300 million, it's worth so much more to them. So that would actually make her contract smaller than if she was an American running the same times. But the agent I spoke to estimated that a contract of between $200,000 and $400,000 a year would be being put on the table in front of Rashida in recent weeks.
That's brilliant. And then now all of a sudden, of course, she's liable to win. She's capable of winning the prize money and accepting the prize money in the Diamond League. Is there an American equivalent to the Diamond League that we would have grown up with in Europe? What do professional runners in America, how do they earn their money in races?
They basically just come to Europe.
Right.
The pro scene in US is not great. There are a couple of Continental Tour gold meets, which is what the meet last night was in Hungary, but that's one tier down from Diamond League, so the prize money is a little bit lower, the fields are a little bit less deep, and Diamond Leagues are up the top, and there's only, is it the New York, I think, is the only Diamond, or there's 2 Diamond Leagues, there's one in Oregon, and there is only one Diamond League in the US, and that's in Oregon in September every year. So most of the kind of professional circuit is based in Europe. So I think what we'd see from Rashida as we look towards the Paris Olympics will be that she'll probably run a few early season races like most of the Americans would do in April and May to just tune up a bit, and then get over to Europe for a few races through June and July. And then obviously the Paris Olympics will be end of July next year.
You used the word trajectory there earlier, Cathal, and we spoke with Vicki Wall's unbelievable Irish sporting story earlier in the show. When you think about Rashida, to go from Presentation College in Terenure and all of the sports that she tried as a kid and a teenager, I think basketball and athletics were the last 2 left on the decision making list, and then to even go from the disappointment of Tokyo missing out on the team there to this, a shoe deal with Nike. This is one of the great Irish sporting stories.
It really is, yeah. I mean, you would have seen it from many years coming, but there's so many athletes who've been as good as Rashida at the age of, or similar to Rashida in terms of exciting talent at the age of 14, 15, 16, who just fizzle out, burn out or fade away. But I think with Rashida, you have to credit, I think there's 3 things with an athlete that makes them get to this level. It's their own discipline and drive, and she has that. It's having good parents around you who steer you correctly and are actually on board with what you're trying to do, and Rashida has that. And it's having a good coach as well, and Rashida has had that, in terms of Johnny Fox, her juvenile coach, handing it over to Daniel Kilgallen, and Daniel's project for 2 or 3 years before she went to Texas was to just get her ready, her strong enough and mechanically sound enough to withstand what was coming at her in the NCAA. And obviously Edric Floriel, a truly world-class coach, has just built on all that and brought her to the level she's at. And so I think, all those 3 things, combine to make Rashida what she is.
Not to labour the point on the money, right? But just because we are always fascinated by the football contracts and that kind of is. But in terms of Diamond League prize money, then, what's the difference? What is available to you if you perform well in the Diamond League over a 12-month period?
It's pretty poor relative to other sports. You're talking about golf there a while ago, and I'm sure the golfers would laugh. If you finished 50th on the PGA Tour, you probably get more than you do for winning a Diamond League. But I think it's $10,000 for winning a Diamond League, maybe $8,000 for second, and then Continental Tour, like the meet last night, I think might be $4,000 or $5,000 maybe for a win, $3,000 or $4,000 for second. But at the Diamond League final, then I think you can win like 40 or 50,000 for first. That would be in Oregon in September. So I'm sure Rashida will be going there. And then World Championships, there's prize money available as well. I think that's maybe $60,000 for first, and maybe 40,000 for silver, something like that.
That's why you need to be a business person as well as actually being an athlete. It's a bit like the jockeys, where you need to manage your career incredibly well to maximise your earning potential, to give you the freedom to be able to train in the blocks that you want to, and that's why any of these contracts that she has with any of her sponsors are going to be incredibly important in the coming years.
Exactly, because at the level you get to, I know some Irish athletes, once they break through to international level, can look at an agent and go like, they're going to take 15% is pretty standard. Sometimes the bigger the contract, sometimes you can negotiate it down a bit. Like I'm sure Usain Bolt or someone, when he was on 10 million a year from Puma, might have been on 7 or 8% to his agent or something like that. But normally it's 15%. And a lot of athletes, when they get their first contract, might look at that and go like, what do you actually do to take 15% of my earnings, you know? But I think the more I've been around the sport, the more you do see the value of an agent is absolutely massive, because they're the ones who are negotiating to get you into a meet, and they're the ones who are getting you on a good lane in a lot of those Diamond Leagues, and they're the ones, you know, who are sitting down with the brands, and if one brand isn't giving you your value, they have decades of experience to go, well, I know what this other brand is going to give you, you know. So ultimately an agent is an absolutely key element of it. I haven't actually heard yet who Rashida's agent is, but I won't speculate. I've heard a couple of different people mentioned, but we'll find out. She's doing a round of interviews back in Ireland on Monday, so I'm sure we'll find out more about her path forward then.
The age profile, I guess, it points to how this makes sense, because like she's 20 years of age, and as different athletes have pointed out, ex-athletes between the age of 20, 23, 24, things can go wrong. I think Seb Coe said you're only ever a hamstring away from oblivion. So to do it now is probably the best time.
Absolutely, yeah. This is the time to go pro and enter this world. And, you know, she's going to be, if she stays healthy, she's going to be out there on the pro scene for the next decade. She's still only 20, we have to remind ourselves. And, you know, the likes of Shawnee Miller-Weibo, who she's a very similar athlete to Shawnee Miller-Weibo, the two-time Olympic champion of 400, because she is that kind of 200, 400 athlete. You know, she's just out on maternity leave at the moment and making her way back. She won't be back in time for the World Championships, but she'll definitely be back in time for the Paris Olympics. And, you know, there's no reason this won't be the first of like 3 or 4 Olympics that Rashida can go to. So I think this is the time to get out there, get the experience under your belt. And also, you know, Rashida ran about 50 races last year between relays, and now the best one of all was the European final. It was the 50th race, I think, or 49th race of the year. But I think, you know, ideally, if you're sitting down and planning a season and planning your peak, I don't think any athlete would race that much. And the fact she won't have the NCAA burden, and I suppose it's been a blessing really, because she's run well off it, but I suppose just exhausting you and all the travel that's involved in that, the fact she'll be able to spend her energy a bit more wisely and carefully next year, I think can only be a benefit to her on the path to Paris.
We basically used all our available time talking about Rashida because it's such a big story at the moment, but we shouldn't let the moment pass without mentioning Sophie O'Sullivan and the 1-2 with Sarah Healy at the Euro under-23s. How good could Sophie O'Sullivan be?
Very good. I mean, she's bundles of talent, and I'd say the same with Sarah Healy. You know, they're both 22 years old, and it was astonishing, and they both had different paths but similar trajectories, because they both struggled a bit coming out of under 20 level, just a rocky year or two, and they're both back flying now. They found that kind of consistency of training. And yeah, Sophie has she's built up the endurance base, but she has the wheels of her mum Sonia that we all saw coming home there in the last 100 metres the weekend. And Sarah Healy, it's great to see her back running so well. She's moved into a properly professional setup now, over training in England with Trevor Painter, who coaches the Olympic silver medalist Keely Hodgkinson. So very exciting things for them ahead. And we also had, I suppose, just to drop in a quick mention, Brian Fay and Andrew Coscoran of the Dublin Track Club training group with Phelan Kelly, absolutely smashing the Irish records there at the weekend, both taking 2 seconds off the 5k and the 1500 metre record. So very exciting times. And then when you look to junior level, Nick Griggs with an Irish under 20 record in foul conditions at the Morton Games as well. So I think the middle distance is definitely making a huge resurgence for Ireland, and we'll see a lot more Irish athletes lining up in European and maybe even World or Olympic finals. But I think, yeah, in terms of medals, I think Rashida is the one to look to for the next couple of years.
Carl, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Thank you.
It's Cathal Dennehy there with really interesting insights into the trajectory of Rashida Adeleke, and obviously we'll keep a very close eye on Sophie O'Sullivan. It's going to be a bit of a burden for her, being her mum's daughter, but also kind of inspiring for the rest of the country as well.
The pressure, and you saw the kick in that race against Sarah Healy, so familiar. And Sarah Healy was gutted because she was the number 1 seed and probably fancied herself to beat Sophie O'Sullivan, but I think she said afterwards, there's no one she'd rather lose to, obviously, than other Irish athlete than Sophie. So 1-2, unbelievable.
Right, the hurling pod is at the Bord Gáis Energy Theatre in Dublin, and it is tomorrow. We're going to be joined on stage by co-host James Kell and Paul Murphy, as well as special guests Joe Canning, Kieran Carey and Tommy Walsh. If you've any interest in sport or life, this is going to be an all-time great show. It's in the BGE. It's on tomorrow evening. It's an exclusive off-air event. You have to be there. There are limited tickets left this morning on offtheball.com/events. It's all for a great cause. All the ticket proceeds are going to the Dylan Quirk Foundation and Focus Ireland. Get your tickets now. Help support 2 brilliant causes. Bord Gáis Energy, proud sponsors of the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championships. Some highlights for you on the Off the Ball podcast network today. The latest hurling pod before the live show. Colin O'Rourke speaking with Joe last night about the Tailteann Cup and Sean Boylan, and the lunchtime wrap for you available as well. After the break, Sue Ronan responds to Sarah O'Donovan's heartbreak. First, Aisling O'Reilly speaking with John Kiley yesterday ahead of the All-Ireland Final. Back after these.
And what's it like for you, John? Do you enjoy all this? I know you're asked in there and you said that I don't enjoy it, going out to the games. It's not about that, but do you enjoy this success, this journey you're on? It's pretty special.
Well, I enjoy my time with the lads, I love coming to training. I've never ever felt like I didn't want to get in the car and go to training. I love getting in the car and going to training. I love every minute in this stadium and out in Rathkeale where we do our training. We have great fun. We have had great laughs and times, going and coming from matches, as well as another really enjoyable piece of it. Match day is work day, you're on the clock and that's it, and from the minute you leave home you want to be the best that you can be, because you certainly don't want to leave these guys down, and make a poor decision. That's probably the one thing that you're really, really conscious of, that you are the decision maker and you better make sure you get the decisions right. So that's the part for me to look after. That's where I have to step up and make sure that I'm the best that I can be for them. But listen, we've had a really, really enjoyable time. We continue to do that, and I hope we'll continue long into the future to have it as well.
Yeah, you've 2 weeks now. Do you feel calm? Do you feel pressure? Can you sleep? What is it like for you?
It's busy. Today is certainly a very, very busy day. There's a lot going on. We've a lot more to do this evening, but that's part and parcel of it as well. We want to try and get ahead of ourselves if we can, and try and get a lot of the little bits and pieces that come with this occasion, sorted early doors and get them done, so we can go and concentrate on what's really important: our training, our preparations, making sure that we're absolutely ready for the game when it comes next Sunday week.
We're off to the land down under.
We're going to Australia.
What dreams are made of.
It's Galway versus Kilkenny. But not as you know it.
It's the fastest I've ever seen you run in your life.
Hurling Pod Live is off to the Bord Gáis Energy Theatre in Dublin this July, and you're invited.
I'll be joined by my co-host James Kell and Paul Murphy on the night.
Start the leveler, he'd say, and the tractor is coming after us.
As we debate the highs and lows of the 2023 season and preview the All-Ireland Hurling Final. Plus, we'll be announcing some more hurling legends to take the stage with us.
It was a ruck, I got confused.
It's happening on July 20th at the Bord Gáis Energy Theatre. It's an exclusive off-air event. Tickets are limited, so don't delay. Go to offtheball.com/events for more.
Bord Gáis Energy, proud sponsors of the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship.
This is what inter-county hurling is it? That's why I should have stayed the rugby.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.
16 minutes past 9 this morning. We are 27 hours out from the Republic of Ireland against Australia in the World Cup, and I'm delighted to say Sue Ronan is with us this morning. Sue, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, Ger. Morning, Shane. How are things?
Yeah, good. We're all getting excited.
One day out now. It's on top of us, all set.
Before we get into it, you broke poor Sarah O'Donovan's heart a long time ago.
So I believe. I'm sure there's lots of other girls I broke hearts of too, unfortunately. But I think that could be the same Sarah O'Donovan I brought back in later on with the under-16s as a video analyst. So maybe I made up to it. Maybe I made it up to her if it is. But
she seems happy enough anyway at this stage. Well, you get to make their lives by.
There you go. It's resilience, Ger. Resilience.
And we're going to need a lot of resilience on the pitch tomorrow, right?
Absolutely, we will. We absolutely will. I don't know whether you watched any of, or you got to see any of Australia against France last week. Very impressed with them, I have to say. I know I've been sort of tracking them over the last year without really seeing much footage, but I work with a couple of guys from Australia and listening to the results and hearing how they were doing. They weren't too impressed with the results about a year ago, but now they've started to go on a trajectory. I think they're unbeaten in a good few games, but I saw half of that game myself against France, and I was very impressed with them. I thought they were very, very fit. Looked really hungry, really sharp. They were quick to get up, like they sort of sat deep to contain the French, but very quick on the break to support Sam Kerr. You know, with midfielders running, the wide players getting forward, everything we expect they're going to do, but really hungry. And then when they went one goal up, they were determined not to concede, you know, so I think it's going to be a tough task for us tomorrow.
Is the glass half full from our perspective on that Australia performance against France, Sue? The fact that counter-attacking threat from Australia, I mean, when it comes up against, I guess, the 7-person defence in Ireland, it could be slightly more difficult.
That's the issue, yeah. So, like, I mean, I expect us to sit deep, really, to be honest, to try to contain the Australians. So they're going to have to try and navigate their way around that, because they are really they're a very direct team. They're a counter-attacking team, really. So yeah, how is that going to work when they're having to face a very low block? You know, so that's something I'm sure they've been working on themselves. But you know, I still fancy us to get a point, to get something out of the game. I really feel we won't lose it. Maybe put my neck on the block there, but I think we've enough in us to get a result, and whether that's just a defensive performance and containing them, you know, and trying to hit them down on the counter-attack, I think that probably will be our philosophy to start. But I do think, you know, listen to all the interviews, looking at what's going on, the players seem to be well up for this, and you know, there's going to be nerves on both sides. Of course, there's going to be nerves for our team. Most of them haven't played in front of 82,000 fans. There'll definitely be nerves on the Australian side. They're hosting the World Cup. They're the host nation. There's a lot of expectations on their shoulders. But look, what an occasion. What an occasion. Wish we were all there watching it rather than back home.
It's obviously been a roller coaster for various reasons. In the build-up, the news this morning that Denise O'Sullivan is going to start, it's incredibly important. Like, you can't overstate the importance in terms of the surge of energy that's going to give the team. Like, both Vera and Katie in the press conference this morning by Kathy was at it and was like, Katie was interrupted, we're very relieved. This is about as good news as it could have been. It's almost as if Roy Keane came back after Saipan.
Yeah. No, for sure. Denise is hugely important to this team, and you know, I mean, we all look at Katie, and she's the leader and the high-profile player, I guess, probably on this side of the world, because she's playing for Arsenal. We see more about how she's doing with her club than we would Denise. But for me, Denise is vital to this team. She's a vital cog. She's the playmaker of midfield. The amount of work that girl does, her ability on the ball, her ability off the ball, you know, to fill gaps, to see danger, to press players. She's urging her teammates around her. Like, she probably has a little bit more of an impact on the whole team because of where she plays, because Katie is maybe a little bit more isolated on the left hand side. But you know, for me, it's such a good news story that Denise is fit, and for herself personally, it would have been a travesty if she missed out on this occasion to show her ability on the world stage. But from an Ireland point of view, it would have been such a loss, and yeah, I'm not sure how we would replace her, to be honest.
She brings that little bit of aggression as well, Sue, doesn't she? We kind of spoke after the defeat to France in the friendly game at Tallaght Stadium, how, you know, she gets that yellow card laid on, and it was Ireland's first yellow card of the match, and maybe you'd like to see a little bit more, not of yellow cards, but of I guess, controlled aggression, and Denise certainly has that in spades.
Absolutely, and she doesn't get yellow cards because she's so good in the tackle. Her timing is so good, but she definitely is aggressive. And if you watch her off the ball, like, you know, she's biting all the time. When we don't have the ball, she's always biting. She's always where the ball is, you know, because she's so fit. She's so physically fit for a small, slight girl. You know, she's really, really fit. And as I said, she reads the game so well, but hugely important to us. Personally, I'd like to see her with a little bit more license to get forward in the middle of of the park. I'd like to see us use, say, Megan Connolly in there, which would give that little bit more maybe defensive stability, and Denise could be the number 8/10 type player, the box-to-box player, and affect our attack in the final third, because she has that in her locker. She can see the pass, she can slip it in behind the defenders or through the gaps. That's her style of play. She's not going to get on the ball and spray balls like from the left side of midfield out to the right wing. Megan Connolly can do that, but she has that in her ability to play in her locker, to play maybe a little 1-2 around the edge of the box, or slip a ball through for one of the forwards to get a strike on goal. So from my point of view, I would like to see her a bit further forward. But look, I think she's hugely important for us, and it's a huge relief that she is fit.
How do we There's definitely two schools of thought where, Australia, home nation, 80,000, Kathy Freeman, and speaking to them before, this could go pear-shaped early. And here's the thing, if it does go pear-shaped early, there's still 2 other matches for us to scrap and try and get 4 points from to get out of. So, we have been in tournaments where things have gone pear-shaped for us and there's no recovery, but they need to show the resilience if that does happen. And at the same time, there's also an opportunity for us to just get in under the skin of the Australian team, who will feel all that pressure, who will feel the pressure of Kathy Freeman winning the gold medal in Sydney, and in this stadium we have to match that. And if we're not matching it after 15 minutes or 25 minutes or 35 minutes, that's where we can start to just get at them. So how do you pitch that as a manager? What are you talking about this week to them to make sure that the occasion doesn't overawe them, but that actually we use that to our advantage?
I think you're reminding them of all the knockbacks they've had over the years and all the setbacks. I think we've spoken a lot now on this show about the resilience of this team. And, I think there was a huge disappointment after not qualifying for the last Euros. We know it, and the circumstance in which they went out. And then to see our near neighbours who, no disrespect to Northern Ireland, were a much better team than them, for them to qualify. I mean, that hurt the players badly. I'm sure it hurt the management as well. But those players had been around a long time. I mean, they knew their time was now. They knew everything was there for them, to make them, to help them perform to the best of their ability, and they just let it slip out of their grasp. So I think that, and other knocks they've had over the years, coming back from injuries, all the different things they've gone through. We've talked about the strike, everything. I think they've just built up such a bank of resilience, and I don't think they fear anyone now. I mean, we saw them go out against USA, and they were excellent in the 2 games against USA. We maybe didn't play so well against France. I can't comment too much because I was away, I didn't see it. But from what I hear, France went through the gears and were a level above us. But, I definitely think we have it in our locker on any given day to trouble a team. And certainly a team like Australia, as I've mentioned before, they're not one of the top 5-6 teams in the world who do find that way to win. Like against USA when we were so good, but yet they found a way to win. I think they're going to relish the occasion. Vera's going to stress there's no pressure on their shoulders. There's no expectations. The whole nation's behind them. I just think they're going to go out and enjoy themselves. I'd be surprised if they're caught by nerves. Of course, there'll be that tension as early on, but I think they'll be able to pull themselves out of it.
Talk about the hope that we get a draw out of this one, Sue. There is the hope there as well. Let's say we were to touch wood, it doesn't happen, but goal behind. We found it difficult to create chances in games of late. Now the running of the likes of Marissa Shiva and Kira Carusa helps to that end and causes a bit of disruption, but do you have that hope that we can create enough chances to kind of score goals in this group?
That's a $50 million question with this team, isn't it? We're very good at keeping opponents out, and we're very good at scoring set play goals, but we haven't, and free kicks, corners particularly, I suppose we haven't scored too many from open play, and that's the danger. We have maybe a couple of players who could spring from the bench. You have obviously Amber Barrett has come on and done really well and scored goals. If we're behind against Australia, they're going to sit deep too, I think. And Amber's game is probably in behind, so that mightn't suit her. So you might be looking at, do you throw in an Abby Larkin who has that little bit of skill and swagger and maybe no fear, maybe just to get at them, and they probably don't know anything about her either. So hopefully we might have one or two from the bench that we could spring, but I would hope that we don't fall behind, because I think we could be relying on a set play to equalise, as I say, especially against Australia, who won't be too open. They'll sit themselves, they look to hit Kerr on the break. Then if they've gone 1-0 up, they'd be quite happy with that. Defensively, as I mentioned, against France, they were just so solid looking and determined, and bodies on the line, and they've got some big players in there like Alana Kennedy, who plays at City. And although there was one or two, we was talking about injuries, in that game against France, they took a couple of knocks as well. One was sort of innocuous thing, another was a bad tackle, and so I think two, from what I'm reading there online, those two players would be important players for them. Maybe a doubt, which could potentially play in their hands. I think Tamika Yallop, who was very, very good, she's doubtful, I think, and Kaya Simon potentially also. I don't think they took part in the last training session, but look, you don't know what's going on in the coach's mind. They may line up against us, but either way, they've got some very, very good players. But I'm still hopeful we get the draw tomorrow.
Sue, with all the stuff that has been published in The Athletic about Vera and her response to that, and the fact that has become a talking point in the build-up, now it's been parked, it seems, for the last couple of days, how difficult is it for a squad to get over a distraction like that, and how important is it that they actually deal with it and make sure that everybody is comfortable with the story, the treatment of and the response from the players, the FAI, and from Vera as well? How do you deal with something like that as a group?
I'm sure they've had their chats about it. I'm sure they've had lots of meetings, lots of discussions, and really, I suppose at the end of the day, as both Vera and Katie said at the press conference immediately afterwards, they just want to put it behind them now, and they don't want it to be a distraction in the World Cup. And I think the players now, with the majority of them, if not all of them, playing professionally, I think that's sort of really been drilled into them now, that they can leave off-pitch matters aside when it really comes to it and not let it affect them. So I think they'll be fine on that matter. I don't think it's going to bother them at all during this tournament or interfere in their thinking or their planning or preparation for the games. So we've no excuses, really. It's as well prepared a team as it could be. Obviously the Colombia game was a bit of a disaster in retrospect, but they also seem to have dealt with that relatively well. And we're here now. Denise Sullivan is fit. Yeah. How we got here is all a story. It is all a story of resilience. Yeah, it is, and we have no excuses now. When I say we've no excuses to not be able to perform to the best of our ability. And whether that's good enough at the end of the day, only time will tell. And as you know, things can go, you can still perform to the best of your ability in a game and something could go badly wrong. You just switch off for a minute, you concede, or a referee gives a bad decision, there's a penalty against you, whatever, or you get a player sent off for an innocuous tackle. So, even the best prepared teams, something can go wrong that knocks them off their stride. But there's no excuses for them not to be able to perform to the best of their ability, because everything is the preparation's been spot on, the lead up right up to the preparation, even all the resources are in place for them. They don't want for anything now, so they seem to be in a nice home base camp in Brisbane. I'm sure they've gotten the jet lag thing right as well. I know all the club, all the countries were getting their advice and doing what they should be doing, so I'm sure they've got that as well, spot on as well as they can. So yeah, it's just get out there and play now and give it your best shot, because for some of those players, they'll never get to a World Cup again. No. That's the reality of it, No, this is it. It's history in the making. Sue, good stuff. Thanks a million. Thanks, guys. Take care. Enjoy the game. Let's see Ronan giving us her thoughts there. Right, tomorrow's show we have the arrival of the World Cup. It's finally here. The legend that is Linda Gorman is going to be in studio with us. We'll have Luke Connolly, who's brother of Megan, former Cork senior footballer himself, en route to the stadium to watch his sister. Kathleen will be outside the ground filling and will predict the outcome live in studio. We'll also have Seamus Hickey on Limerick. Shane here is going to be live on the road visiting Kilkenny and Limerick ahead of the weekend, and plenty more besides. Safe trip, Shane. Yeah, looking forward to it. Should be fun. Right now, Lawrence Donegan on the Open. Have a wonderful Wednesday.
Now then, you're welcome, Max. So if the GAA season is complaining it's done in July, the golf major season is of a similar vein, but here we are, the final major of 2023. Thus far, the story has been John Rahm winning the Masters. We had Brooks Koepka winning his 5th. major, now very much the leader of his post-Tiger generation. He saw Victor Hovland at the USPGA. And then, of course, Wyndham Clark broke Rory McIlroy hearts, amongst others, at LA Country Club. And now here we are at Hoylake. The good news on Seamus Power is that he is fit to take part. He will join fellow Irish contenders Rory McIlroy, Shane Lowry, Padraig Harrington, all three Open winners, of course. And we should say, keep an eye out for Alex Maguire. 22 years of age, amateur from Meath. He qualified via a 3-event series, including at St Andrews. And just last year at the Open at St Andrews, he slept in a tent with his dad, and now he's playing at the Open. As he said, I'm trying not to fanboy too much. So Alex Maguire, 22 years of age. Decent shout for the silver medal is the sense Gary Murphy was saying to us on our golf podcast earlier on. So we are set up and ready to go. Lawrence Donegan is with us. Hello.
How you doing, Joe? Can I tell you a quick story about Alex Maguire in that three tournament series?
Please.
It was the Lynx Trophy, the Amateur Championship, and the European Amateur Championship. So Alex won the Lynx Trophy, did pretty well in the Amateur Championship. So he thought he was in first place going into the third of the 3 legs, and he forgot to enter the European Amateur. So he didn't play the European Amateur and had to sit for the entire week, wait to see if somebody would overtake him. There was a couple of boys, one Swedish boy, absolutely incredible. And it so happened it was run by a Spanish kid called Javier Ballester, who's playing this week at the Open, and Alex snuck in, having only played 2 of the 3 series. So there you go.
Wow.
Good luck to him. He's a great lad. Great player as well, by the way.
Yeah, well, we wish him well. We'll keep an eye out for him. Definitely a great chance he'll make the weekend, which would be quite something. So here we are, 4th major of the year. It goes by quickly. I'm not a fan of this, done by July business. Does not work for me.
Me neither, Joe. It was all done for the FedEx playoffs, so they would kind of assume their place as the pinnacle of professional golf. And guess what? It never worked out like that. It's really the rhythm is all wrong. The PGA Championship in May doesn't. Glory's last shot was a cheesy marketing slogan, but it kind of works better than Glory's second shot. I'm with you, Joe. I preferred it the way it used to be. We're just a pair of old codgers at this stage, though, Joe.
We sure are. So Hoylake, Liverpool, I was there in 2014 when Rory won, and it's funny, this week I was trying to think back and remember the course, and very little came to mind. I had to hop on YouTube and watch his final round back earlier in the week. It's a kind of a very flat, narrowish fairways, unremarkable golf course from the point of view of vantage points or drama. I know the new 17th hole, which I'm sure we'll come on to, is maybe an exception to the rule. Good, solid, won't get in the way, won't be the story kind of golf course. Is that about fair?
I think subtle changes in the wind can really make it fun and interesting and mix it up for the players. So visually it's not Turnberry or it's not the old course, but I think it's a good test. My judge of these golf courses, Joe, is always look at the winners. The winners at Hoylake are, what are they? Bobby Jones, Roberto Di Vincenzo, Peter Thompson, Tiger Woods, and Rory McIlroy. That is there's no that is quite a lineup. There are no choppers in that group. So I always think that's a good sign of what the golf course is. But we're not going to be blown away visually. The 17th might be interesting in all sorts of different ways.
As you say, that's okay. Sometimes, Royal St George's with its quirky bounces maybe involves itself a bit too much in proceedings. So I'm quite happy for a golf course to be a little bit mature and sit back and let the players do their thing. The forecast is, not great, but not awful. The wind looks to be fine, manageable, kind of 20k territory. It will be wet Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe a stiffer breeze on the Sunday, to be fair. That remains to be seen. So I guess, Lawrence, in more recent memory, people would think of Hoylake, and in particular, they would think of Tiger Woods on that peroxide course, burnt to a crisp, and he left the driver in the bag and missed, didn't find a bunker all week, and it was an amazing performance. And then, of course, 14, McIlroy. I was surprised watching back. I don't know what he did in his first 3 rounds, but in his final round, he took out the driver 3 times. A lot of long irons off the tee.
Although great driver off the first though. Actually, I was looking at I watched the same film as you, Joe, and he had that Nike red-headed driver, and the Nike, the really
should it count as 2 majors for winning with that thing?
Actually, Tiger 2006 was playing with the Nike Sumo in the bag. I mean, Nike had a foray into golf club. I can't believe we're talking about golf club equipment, but I mean, those were ugly. And he also played the Sasquatch for about a hot minute. Terrible golf clubs. Actually, very interesting. There's a really good little thread on Twitter I noticed this morning by a guy called Alex Murray, who coached Rod Pampling, who played a lot of practice rounds with Tiger, and they were playing with Tiger that week in practice, and Tiger was going to hit driver all that week, but just couldn't hit it, couldn't find the fairway. Wow. So it wasn't really a great strategy. It wasn't great, going into this is the strategy. He actually couldn't find a fairway with the driver, so he took I think he hit one driver, and I think he put it in a bunker. So it wasn't wasn't great.
I'd never heard that. So this great strategic marvel was actually he wasn't great with the driver that week.
Absolutely amazing, and that's absolutely true. And I know Alex Murray, and I'm sure he is a solid, legit guy. Knows his golf. Obviously, he was a head teaching pro at Hoyley for a few years. So there you go. It's amazing how here we are, 18 years after the event took place, and you learn something new today. So there you go. There's also famously Tiger played with Sergio in the final round, and Sergio was dressed in the banana yellow outfit, and Tiger sent the famous text. I think go and look at Stevie Williams' book. Stevie Williams' book and Robert Lucitis' book on Tiger to find out what Tiger's text said about beating the yellow-clad Sergio Garcia. It's a very famous little text.
Okay,
I can't. It's
repeatable on radio. No,
it's unfortunately not. I've just actually. I'll clean up. I've just beaten Tweety Pie was the text he sent to his pals.
Will all this rain and this wetness mean that we'll see a whole bunch of players taking driver, or like indeed maybe just players these days think, stuff your strategy, I'm going to hit this as long as I can? Bryson's going to take out the driver for one. Well, I mean, McIlroy will be an interesting case in point, I suppose. The rough isn't awful, and there isn't nothing. It's kind of that's pretty decent rough. It could be a little bit thicker, really, but it's at that stage, Joe. It's a kind of wispy, grab the hosel of the club. So it's just enough to put a little bit of doubt in some players' minds. But I think I mean that's what happens now, Joe. At every level of golf you watch. I mean, it's just guys are just smashing it down there, taking a chance that they'll hit 7 or 8 out of 14 fairways, and then take their chances on the other 6 holes. I would imagine we won't be seeing much of the. Of course, it's quite a long golf course, so you'll have to hit driver. It's not like 2006 where the ball was running for 100 yards on the ground. I think these major championships now, there's no short hitters that are really contending that much. It's going to be somebody who shifts it out there, and it's the usual suspects, isn't it? It's the usual suspects. But again, we'll see if the wind gets up, then that should sort out a few people. In terms of the build-up, I mean, let's try and contain ourselves here and keep live talk to like 10% of this conversation, because these 4 weeks of the year, it should be like nice to get away from it. It was interesting that Brooks Koepka, of all people, found himself accidentally playing a practice round with Zach Johnson. They just happened to turn up at the tee at the same time and ended up having a long conversation. So Koepka was playing his cards close to his chest there. But the other thing which caught my eye was Jon Rahm. Like, in some ways, Rahm has quietly emerged as just a real person of substance and a leader in his own quiet way, as opposed to McIlroy, who does it in a slightly more ostentatious way. I don't mean ostentatious in a derogatory way, but that is McIlroy's manner in the main. Rahm was asked the same question Rory was asked when Rory was talking about feeling like a sacrificial lamb. Do the PGA Tour, in effect, they need to make right by you financially? All this money, you stayed. Do we need to give you, Jon Rahm, and you, Rory McIlroy, and all of the other loyal PGA Tour players, a whole bunch of wedge for staying? And here was Rahm's response today: no. I wasn't forced into anything. Do I think they should be that there should be a forced compensation? No. I stayed because I think it was the best choice for myself and for the golf I wanted to play. We all had the chance to go to live and take the money. We chose to stay at the PGA Tour for whatever reason we chose. I already make an amazing living doing what I want to do. I'm extremely thankful for that, and all of that happened because of the platform the PGA Tour provided for me. As far as I'm concerned, they've done enough for me, and their focus should be on improving the PGA Tour and the game of golf for future generations. Now, what an outstanding answer that is. I understand McIlroy was feeling a bit peeved, I'm sure, around the time of the announcement, but like, step forward, John Ram, that is just quality.
Yeah, it really is. And the thing, I always say this when people bring up something to John Ram, it's his second language. This is a kid who turned out to play at Arizona State University as an 18, 19-year-old, could barely speak a word of English. And here we are, fast forward, 10, 12 years, and he's a leader. He's a leader, in words, he's a leader in deed. He's got massive respect. It's funny, I was quite surprised when I saw that he was never tempted, because that was one of the rumours that was kicking around. Why was the PGA Tour so desperate to kind of get some kind of solution to this, to close this down, because there was a lot of stuff flying around it. The next tranche of players were about to move, and that Ram was the principal amongst them. So for him to come out today and say that, that was interesting to me. But he really is, and again, his approach of really not saying too much, but he had things to say through. He was pretty peed off through the whole thing about the way the PGA Tour was behaving, but he didn't. He kind of said it in a subtle way, in a nuanced way. He expressed his disappointment or anger in kind of subtle ways, and this kind of serves him well now, because here we are at the Open Champion. Rory's scuttling away from the press. He obviously doesn't want to talk about the Senate hearings last week. He doesn't want to talk about the tranche of documents that was released. And I think that this whole experience is obviously chasing Rory. He might, moving ahead, I think we might see a bit more of the John Ram approach to Rory's dealings, and it probably serves him best. The other one this morning was Scotty Scheffler jumped in front of the press, and he was going how grateful he was that Rory had taken taken all the ballast, or taken on all the weight of presenting the PGA Tour's case, while he could get on with what he likes to do, which is compete. I thought, well, lucky you, Scotty. I think if Rory saw that, he would kind of cop on as well. So I think moving ahead, I think we'll see a bit more restraint from Rory when it comes to all of this stuff.
Well, it's certainly looking that way. I would like to be there when Ram walks back into the locker room and a whole bunch of fellas are saying, "You may have just cost me 40 million quid here, buddy. When you want to shut your mouth."
Actually, the other thing I got from that is, what a mess. I mean, just that whole thing is just, again, I know we're not going to get into too much live talk, but my goodness, right now, Joe, we are sitting in coming up to the last major of the year, almost at the end of July, and there are no schedules for any major tour next year. We don't know if live golf is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the Senate hearing, there was obviously the grandstanding politically from Blumenthal about the ills of Saudi Arabia, and there's like the juicy, a big part of Nasser Al-Rumayyan to be a member of Augusta, and it's all very funny in some respects. But I think if somebody was just to casually say, so what was the deal with all that Senate business? Where are we? In short, and I think one of the senators made the point, they actually have so little figured out that there's actually nothing here for anybody to analyse. I mean, it's like an agreement that we're going to almost start negotiations, but they haven't agreed anything about anything. And even the senators were of a mind to say, well, it might be a bit early for us to actually look into this because you're so far behind schedule.
It's quite astonishing. A major league, a major sporting organisation does not have a plan. Not even what tournaments are going to happen in 6 months' time. The 2024 season is supposed to start in January. There's no schedule. Is live golf going to happen in 2020? I think I was on with you. I felt bad about it because I was so sure that live golf wouldn't happen in 2023. But it might have to, because where else are these live guys going to play? Yeah. There's no plan for bringing the live guys back into the PGA Tour. It's quite astonishing. Think about it. If the English Premier League or the NBA or the NFL was in a similar state of disarray, people, I am literally kind of speechless. It's amazing.
Yeah. On Ram then, if we turn towards the tournament, he obviously has had a sensational first quarter of the year, and then post-Masters was finding his feet again, and of late really hasn't played very much. Obliged to play the Travellers where he missed the cut, did okay-ish at US Open, kind of reversed into a top 10 finish, give or take. We just haven't seen much of him. Didn't play last week either. He's been hanging around Ballybunion the last couple of days.
Yeah, I saw Tom Watson used to do that, didn't he? He used to go to Ballybunion with a fiver and play around Ballybunion. Yeah, again, that's a kind of old school. You kind of rarely see that. I think somebody, is it 10 of the last 11 winners of the Open Championship played in the Scottish Open the week before.
Wow.
So Ram's obviously gone old school. I remember those great photographs in the early noughties of it was Tiger, Paige Stewart. They were brilliant.
What would you give to be on those trips, huh?
Oh my goodness, could you imagine? And the golf would have been sensational. Actually, speaking of, most of the guys who win it now go and play in the Scottish Open, but the best stuff from last week was watching, Spieth and all playing the golf courses around about the Renaissance. So they were, North Berwick, these great old style links. So maybe Ram's onto something. We'll see. Again, it's just. I look at him and you just think it's just the ebb and flow of form, really.
Yeah.
And you've got to, what you kind of realise now, Joe, watching this, you've got to be right on it. You've got to be so good if you're going to win these, because the level of play, the standard now it's just ridiculous. But Bob McIntyre goes out and shoots 6 under on Sunday and 30 mile an hour of winds. It doesn't win. I mean, that is just amazing.
Yeah.
So I've put, this might be Ram's week to kind of ramp it up again. Who knows? But I mean, you better ramp it up, because, as I say, the level of competition is I've never seen. I've been around this game for a long time, and you have as well, and people who have. It's just absurd how good everybody is these days.
It is, and therefore, in that context, when we say that Scotty Scheffler is having the second best ball striking year in history, insofar as they've been keeping these more nuanced statistics. Tiger Woods in kind of 0.56, I think, and then it's Scheffler. He's just playing unbelievably well, tee to green. He's kind of 1-3 something, give or take, in the putting stats. I suppose like the lifeline here that people are putting a fair amount of stock in is that the slower links greens will suit him better. Funny, is talking to Gary Murphy earlier on in our podcast. Gary still thinks that 4-putt quasi panic attack on the 18th at Augusta has left a mark here, but there's something gone badly awry here for Scotty and the putter, and as Gary was saying earlier, like, he's not just missing, he's missing early with these putts.
Yeah, he's up and out a little bit. A bit like Rory and Sunday on the 18th. Wow. He was up and out and early at that putt. There's I've never actually heard that. What a victory puts the fear of God into you in the putt. I don't know. I think the greens were running at 9 on Sunday at Renaissance Club, and I'm guessing. I think they started the week at 13 and ended up at 9. I'm guessing that the greens this week they won't be quite as slow as 9. But it's true though. The slow greens really even things out a little bit. It doesn't allow the very best putters to separate themselves as much as say at the Old Course last year. So that really does give Scheffler a chance. You ally that with these. It's amazing, you look at Rory and you watch Rory swinging a golf club and you just think it's the most beautiful balletic thing you'll ever see, and then you look at Scotty Scheffler and he looks like a guy falling out of a tree, or an octopus falling out of a tree. But my goodness, the numbers are just undeniable. I think if he putts the best he can putt, that'll take him in the middle of the pack, and that would be enough.
Yeah,
you have to think it would be enough. Yeah, he's playing that well, and I'm not sure his last 5 outings. I think not outside it. I think his worst is 12th, tied 12th in his last 5 outings. I wrote it down earlier. 15 top 10s in his last 19 events. I mean, it's just absurd stuff. This is only his third Open. I think he's top 10 in his first one at Ross at George's, and then I think top 20 or 20 top 25 at the Old Course last year. Yeah. So he can play. He is one of these kind of creative guys. Again, as you said, Joe, it just comes down to his putting. If he puts decently well, then it's kind of hard to see past him, to be honest.
Yeah. So we danced around McIlroy a few times, and a stunning finish to the Scottish Open. As you said, McIntyre played stunning golf in really blustery conditions to be clubhouse leader, and McIlroy finished birdie to win the tournament. Stunning shot in 17 at the par 3, and then his second on 18 was what he described as his best shot of this year. And even I suppose, when you listen to him talk, Lawrence, you get a real sense of the artistry. No 3-iron in the bag, he had a 4-iron and a 2-iron, and 4-iron would have left him front of the green, 2-iron would have been over the back of the green. So he decided, what the hell, I'll go for it, and went 2-iron, but lovely fade into that big old wind into him and let it fall down. And this is the 18th of a big tournament, it's easy to leave that left and be in all sorts of bother. Could have went front of the green and 2-putted and made playoff, but went and won it. And if he brings that kind of that genius and that artistry, but also that kind of clarity of purpose into a major, which is the thing with McIlroy that remains a question mark. In those same circumstances, if that was the 18th of a major and that was his second shot, would he have played with that conviction, I suppose, is an interesting question. And it's only a question. I'm not saying he couldn't, but it's been how many years and counting now?
Yes, the soft landing bullet fade is not a shot I have in my bag, Joe. Into a 35 mile an hour wind. Actually, Joe, I want to go back to earlier last week. The DP World Tour put a film at 3 minutes. It was just every shot Rory hit in the first round or whatever. And I'm watching this. Obviously, I think he shot 66 or something. And I'm watching it. I'm thinking, God, I really like this. I like the way he was swinging it. Every shot was kind of cut off.
Yeah,
he was clearly using the entire week as a practice week for this week, and he was practicing a particular type of shot. When I say cut-off shot, if you just look at every swing Tommy Fleetwood ever takes a cut-off, and Rory was hitting that shot off throughout that entire round that was captured on film. The shot on Sunday was just apotheosis of that. Sorry, absolutely fantastic. Yeah, right. You make a great point, Joe. Would he have the balls to do that on Sunday afternoon at a major championship? Because that could have gone horribly wrong. I guess in the Scottish Open, I think he won 1.7 million or whatever, and it's good to win. It's always good to win, but it was the Scottish Open. It wasn't the Open Championship. I guess we'll find out.
And it's such an ungenerous way of framing what was an amazing win on my part. I appreciate that, but McIlroy's talent is such that we can kind of judge him by these ridiculous standards. There's very few other players you'd quibble with, given what he did on that Sunday in Scotland. And it's just St Andrews last year, perhaps to be fair to a lesser extent at LACC, but again to an extent, just like he's definitely, to his credit, he's really hanging around a lot of these tournaments, and that, he's talked himself, I'll go through 100 more of those Sundays to win one. He's hanging around a lot of them. And that's great, and also frustrating, because it's within him to go and win one of them, and really go and win it. And you kind of think a touch more of that Rory McIlroy DNA, that bit of adventure, might have won the last two, the LACC major and the Open at St Andrews very easily.
Yeah, the last year was a real interesting case study. It was such a boring round of golf, and traditionally that's a round. He'd obviously been reading up the Tiger textbook.
Yes,
and what Tiger had grabbed it. He got the 54. You remember famously 14 out of 14 until he ran into Wai Yang. And he'd obviously he kind of misread the situation, I guess. Who would have thought Cam Smith would come in and shot the round he shot?
That maybe goes to your point about the standard of golf changing, by the way. Maybe in Tiger's era that did get it done, and maybe now you got to say, somebody's going to do something ridiculous out here, so I've got to go with them, maybe.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I don't think you'll make the same mistake this year. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but But when he's leading by 4 on Saturday night, I think the plan will be that it's a really, it's again a really good point. The level of competition. I mean, obviously the players are great in the Tiger era and the kind of the peak of the Tiger era, but the depth wasn't anywhere near what it is now. There's always going to be somebody who might come through. But I guess. I said it before. I don't think Rory will make the same mistake again. I think he'll, if he gets himself in a position to win, I think he's going to have to. He's going to know that he's going to have to, keep the foot on the accelerator at least a little bit.
Yeah. So it's really intriguing. They're kind of the front three in the bookies' eyes and the money's eyes. Scheffler and McIlroy and Ram, and kind of hard to, you couldn't quibble with any of them. It's funny. Next is like Koepka and Smith, the Liv boys, the Liv brothers.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? And I thought they were meant to be terrible, those Liv boys.
I'm not writing either of those two off either, I have to say.
Koepka's again. He's awesome. He's just a great player. Undeniable. You put him in any uniform. He's just he had that, as was brilliantly captured in the Netflix documentary. There's that kind of moment of the ebb and flow of form. He kind of seemed to have lost it for a year or so, but he's got it back. He won the PGA. He won the PGA in great style. Yeah. He could have won the Masters. He's. I've got Scheffler and Koepka. I mean, obviously, this is pathetic, but your heart always wants Rory to win. I think Rory's got a good chance, but if people are going to, two players are going to deny him, I think Koepka's certainly one of them, and Scheffler's the other one. He's what else is there to say about him? He's just a supremely confident, carries himself fantastically well. It'd be interesting, the Zach Johnson thing. They've got to pick him for the Ryder Cup. I mean, I know that we're talking about the Open here, but that'll be one of the great intrigues of the next, in the post-major kind of weeks. What is going to happen with the? If he doesn't pick Brooks Koepka, it's just. then it kind of takes away from the credibility of the Ryder Cup. You'd have to say.
And actually, as a brief aside, the likes of Graham McDowell said the DP World Tour would look foolish if they didn't include Sergio this year.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.